Hello and welcome to episode 203 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. Joining me, as usual, is Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Greg. And more importantly, after recent events, how are you doing?
Who knows? Frankly, I've
Medical
got some blood.
science
I've
is
got some
asking the same
blood
question.
tests tomorrow morning, which might give a small clue. Waiting for the scans. So yeah, thank you for bearing with us. Obviously, we're over a month late because I got necrotizing pancreatitis after a routine operation on my birthday. Well, I woke up on my birthday. So yeah, unfortunately, with this kind of pancreatitis, it can kind of flare up. So an uncertain summer into autumn, but touch wood, do all those things. It seems to be under control, and compared to a lot of people with this, they kept offering me morphine in hospital. I did not need any, so I can't complain too much. But it meant we missed an episode. Terrible behaviour.
I'm disappointed. I'm not angry.
Not angry, no.
Just disappointed.
Well, unfortunately, if I had a decent laptop, we could have recorded in the hospital because, frankly, it was quite
Really?
boring.
Wow.
Had a room for most of the time to myself. Could have just done it. Pause while they come in and check my vitals and stick an
It does have
IV
a
in me.
certain grimdark ring
Oh, it
to
fits.
it,
It fits
necrotizing,
absolutely. Yeah.
Of all the things to have picked up, that was certainly one of the bleaker ones, perhaps.
It's an intimidating
Yeah.
name. It really is.
Yeah.
I don't name these things for your comfort. Like what? No, but also explains exactly what it does. Like, small parts of my pancreas are dead. It's like, okay, cool. What does that mean?
It's not left me in any uncertainty, but
No,
perhaps would have liked to have been.
Yeah, you know what, and I'm here laughing about it because, frankly, there are a lot worse people in a lot worse situation than me. So it set
It's good
things back a
attitude.
bit. We've had to take the house off the market and do those kind of things. Have sell a few more bits on eBay and talk to work and stuff like that. But minor inconveniences compared to a lot of stuff that's going on in the world today. So, but good to be back podcasting. How have you been over the last month and a bit?
Well, yeah, not bad. It was all go to get myself in the right mindset and the right place to go to my annual trip down to Bournemouth to go and take part in Beachhead.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, so there was that. Kind of finishing up work really ramped up a little bit because we were just finishing off a project in part of the world that has got pretty spicy
Just
right now.
finished it. That's good.
Yeah, that was my boss was out there. I was having video calls with him while that.
Oh dear.
Fortunately, just before all that became a thing, but that
all
could have
that freedom was happening.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of weeks different, and that would have been a very different kind of conversation. But all good. But yeah, there was that, so that ramped up. So that's put a bit of a kibosh on hobby things briefly, but hopefully in a more stable place now.
Excellent. Fingers crossed. Cool. So before we go any further, let's talk about our wonderful sponsors, Element Games, for all your hobby needs. They've got Cult of Paint airbrushes back in. They've got every single paint line you could ever think of, including at some point soon, it's getting closer, the new Cult of Paint collaboration they've done with Artis Opus for whatever they're calling their paints now.
Mini colour paints.
Colour, indeed. I paid my £1 for my Patreon support. Couldn't justify the full set, unfortunately. But I will be collecting certainly some of them. There are some specific colours in there that I really want. You can get all that. You can get your board games. You can get your books. You can get your glues. You can get your, you name it. You can get it from Element. And if it's in stock and available, you can sometimes get it the next day if you're lucky with the post. So, and I reckon 9 times out of 10 mine come next day, which is always really useful when you need something. So, yeah.
It occurred to me that I need to go and see if they do 3D print filament because they might.
Oh yes, I believe they might.
Yeah, I think they do.
Because I believe they've had sales on 3D printers and filaments before.
Yes.
And they do have a little sales section, and a lot of it is completely out of date rules and stuff like that. But there are often, fairly often, something in there that might tantalise. I think they've had some Legions Imperialis stuff in there recently.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
Yeah, so go and check that out as well.
Those Cult of Paint airbrushes you were talking about are the new variety as well.
Yes,
It's taken a bit of a while to get there, but they are now.
Yeah, and all your artist opus stuff as well. You can get that through them, or your brushes and your palettes and your whatever you need. So thank you, Element Games, for all your support. Wonderful. Done that. Oh, and right at the top of the show, why not? I'm very bad at promoting the show and promoting the link. Sometimes some people won't say I'm not. So we'll talk about it as Patreon and whatever. But we do have a Patreon. If you do like what we do and you feel like, yeah, cool, I'll give those guys $1 a month or more, then we have that. We don't lock anything behind any content. Everything we do is free. The Patreon has no additional features really. It's about people voiced a desire to support me ages ago, and having learned some lessons on that kind of thing, I was like, cool, I'll put it there. If no one wants to use it, that's fine. If people want to use it, that's also fine. But a massive thank you to the Patreons, because they do help pay for hosting and things like that. We also there's a link tree, certainly on the Twitter. I'm going to try and make sure it's everywhere. All the links are usually in the show notes as well. So if you're on an app, you can go into the show notes and find the links. We have affiliates for Element Games, obviously. We also have our codes on there as well, if you want to do that, which is, thankful for anyone who does that. We also have a link for the Warhammer merch store, and they have got the relics kind of thing going on at the moment, and they've had some sales and some interesting. There are some really kooky stuff on there, which is quite tempting sometimes, but there's actually some really good clothing, and they're doing wall banners for Heresy at the moment, the Legions.
Yeah, they looked quite nice.
Yeah,
they're pretty
it's
cool.
Again, bad timing. I want one. So there is that. So you can find the links to any kind of affiliates we've got there as well. So I will shout that out. And thank you for anyone who supports the show in any way, shape, or form. If that's just telling your friends about the show and saying give it a listen, then great. And if you're here, this has been possibly even more rambly than our normal intros. If you are here because we are talking about Custodes in this episode, and the Mail Fist book and the Custodes book, welcome. Feel free to jump to those sections again. I put timestamps in the show notes, so you can just go skip to 1 hour 30 or whatever you want. Feel free to come back and listen to the rest of it, because you are more than welcome. And we will try to be entertaining and not too dry, but
we do
also have known for this show to be useful for sending people with insomnia to sleep.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I'm absolutely okay with that.
So, there are many talented voice artists who would take that accolade. So yeah, okay.
Indeed. I think sometimes they mean to. That's the difference. But hey, it could be worse.
Don't let that shatter my fragile belief in these things.
Indeed. So there we go. I think we probably covered it. Oh, there were 2 more things. Typically, we had a massive break after launching our episode, and then me prove, just in case you needed it, that I sometimes talk absolute rubbish. Angron came out.
Oh yeah, yeah. That did make me chuckle actually after we had that chat.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely plastic. So obviously there was is it going to be the last resin model? By some stretch, there's been a big gap. But that made me laugh. And weirdly, we talked about Warhammer Heroes, and then out of nowhere, seemingly someone forgot. Oh shoot, we haven't done Warhammer Heroes this year. They threw that out, and it's over now. You can't put your nominations forward, so save them for next year. Dan with 2 N's. We'll run our campaigns, shall we, next year? Give me time to come up with something to to push my name forwards. But hopefully, some of you have put forward your Warhammer heroes. But I think it's good to see that Games Workshop can continue in that. But yeah, I just wanted to get them out there up front. So yeah, so you went to Beachhead. So were you manically hobbying up to Beachhead?
Yes and no. I just find events, because I'm not a regular event goer. Events are there's preparations to be done. I want to do them well, and I want to
Sure.
make it as straightforward as possible when I'm
How'd
there.
that go?
Yeah, quite. So just getting prepared and
Yeah.
having it all in the right place, so I knew what I would have and get into the game easily and not
I
be, oh, where's
must
that stuff and where's the rule and
I
all that
must
stuff.
admit, because I used to go to Warhammer Fantasy Battle events all the time, and you get to the point, oh, cool, event of the weekend, yeah, off you go.
Yeah.
And recently, I don't go to huge amounts of events, and every now and then I'm like heading off, still like, I'm a regular event goer, have been for donkey's years. Oh, I forgot this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's in there, isn't it? Shoot, I moved that out of there a while ago to do this. Like, yeah, so fair play to you.
It was just
Something
all of
I
that
need
sort
to
of
make
stuff. You're
serious.
like, yeah, I need to get through everything in the right place. And even then, at the 11th hour, I was like, oh, maybe I will take a physical copy of the match play guide, and
Sure. Oh, I definitely would.
went to the place where it should have been, and it wasn't there, and
Yeah,
that was delightful. So
always.
at the moment, it's just like, that's not where it should be on the shelf. So that means it's in one of those piles of things to be put away. Oh, great. So it's little annoyances like that. And then promptly also forgot that the event was actually an open war deck, and didn't have those cards with me. So fortunately, my opponents were kind enough to share in those cases, but it just doesn't feel
Yeah,
great. So even with the preparations, I didn't quite nail it. But overall, it was pretty good. Having it being the right kind of case, so you could just take stuff out nice and quickly, put it away, have stuff packed away. I was also, for the first time, traveling down by car, with kindly thanks to Grant, who lives nearby, Diadrin, as he is on Instagram. He very kindly drove us down,
makes sense.
so
Yeah.
it made it a lot more relaxed, actually, overall.
Yeah, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
good.
and it's what I decided to do this year was, rather than realistically, I knew full well that I was going to be pretty wiped out. So the idea of trying to learn and indeed model a new Anapol, a battle group to the standard I would have wanted to, that because I knew that it was going to be high there, I just thought it's not going to happen. It's not realistic, and I will be far too wiped out to do that. And it will make the event itself less enjoyable because I'll be trying to work out how to do so. I thought, let's
Sure.
fit into the nice, comfy slippers of this maniple that I've taken every time. Because it's straightforward and I know how to do it. So I took those. But what I did decide to do with the extra time available was, I thought, I'm going to make some little tokens or little something, sort of inspired by what I've heard things done in sort of Age of Sigmar tournaments. I made some tokens that for every time my opponent would score an engine kill against me, I would offer them the option to take a head, if you will, take a skull, because I'd printed out a load of Titan heads in little craters, little objective marker type things, painted them up like the models I was taking, so that they would have something to kind of take away from it.
Okay.
Needed to paint up enough so that in the hopefully unlikely scenario that I lost every Titan in every round, I would have had enough to cover it, but fortunately that didn't quite happen. But that was the thing. I also took along some new objectives. I did some little sort of Marines raising a flag, and so I did one Blood Angel, one Ultramarine, and one Imperial Fist, a nice red, blue, yellow set of objectives for when we need those in the game. So that was my little hobby exercise before going into the event, and those fortunately got finished. And it was its usual very good self. And I actually made a little bit more slick than normal, because they were trying out the new recruit system for running the event, which is sort of successor, is that the fair thing to say, of a battle scribe? Or it's got a lot of the same people involved behind the scenes, I understand. And that worked very well, because we knew full well ahead of time, a couple of days I think before the event, who our first opponent was. You could be chatting to them if they were in groups and things. And it just made the weekend run very smoothly because you knew where you were going to be, who your opponent was, lists were up there, you could browse them. It just made it really straightforward. And from what I understand, it made Maximal Fire's job, the guys running it, Alex and his team, they made their job quite a bit easier rather than relying on the more manual process. But yeah, it was good.
If you have any kind of reliable program and you're running a tournament, the admin of running a tournament is so minimal compared to a narrative event. It is. I ran a Warhammer Fantasy Battle. My first Warhammer Fantasy Battle tournament was like 60 odd players down in Hastings, and I was looking for things to do because it's like, oh, okay, that's done it all.
Yeah.
All right,
They were
fight
saying the same.
fires.
Once they'd done it, once they had a system like this that worked, and they were terrified that it was going to break at some point. There was a couple of moments it had a little shaky thing, but nothing serious. But
I mean,
they had all these backups and things in place. But actually, they, as you say, they had plenty of time. They were kind of like they were killing time between as people waiting for people to finish games, which hadn't happened before.
I haven't looked at the new recruit system, but like if you're running a tournament, an actual tournament, then like Best Coast pairings can be used. People can upload their lists to that. Kind of, there are plenty of options in that form.
They are. I understand. They're running a their first Legions Imperialis event in May, I think it is, down in Poole, and they're going to use West Coast pairings for that, mainly just to try out an alternative and see what works, what doesn't for them, etc. But they were speaking very highly of it.
Yeah, when I used to run my narrative events, there was a very old system that was brilliant but had stopped being supported, and I only used it like once a year. So every time I tried to use it, I had to go back in and work out how to work it, and it wasn't quite as seamless, which allowed you to like randomly populate, but also put in loads of parameters so you could set traitors, loyalists, and set like never pair traitor to traitor, and then you could put club in, and then you could just put as many kind of options in as you wanted, and then of course have never play the same person. But on top of all that, you could then just manually sort stuff, and it was brilliant. But it had run its course at the time because tournaments just don't need that level of that kind of thing. And there weren't as many narrative events in 40k and Warhammer Fantasy Battle and things like that. But yeah, running tournaments is, I say this, take it in the right way. It's easy because it's
easier than a narrative event. It's easy if you've got easy, right. But there's got to be caveats there, surely, because it's not easy if you haven't got a piece of software.
Well, but there are, but the software is everywhere. Like you can get the software. There are loads of people who do that software, and it is easy once you do that. Don't get me wrong, you still have to do work, but the actual running of an event is fairly easy.
Certainly, it looked much more straightforward. There was less anxiety of putting things in wrong or whatever.
Something can still go wrong, right?
And that was why they had covered that quite well. I thought, where they gave everyone kind of paper backups if it had needed it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even worry too much about that kind of thing, but other things can go wrong and there can be things that happen. But I would say anyone, like people are nervous about running tournaments. I ran my first Heresy event as a tournament because I knew it would be easy and I knew it would be manageable and we could go from there. And it was a like traitor versus loyalist tournament, but it was still a tournament. When people get a bit nervous about running an event, and I'm like, let's run a tournament. Like after game one, you'll realise like kind of where you are, what you're doing. Now, do you have to go and answer FAQ questions and things like that? Maybe, whatever. But there's ways of mitigating that, and it's not necessarily hard. It just takes work.
Well, even in that case, watching Maximal Fire's breakdown after the or sort of discussion video they put out after the event, they said that actually particularly it's an AT one, and it's a fairly well versed AT crowd. There's very few questions, and the questions that were coming, people were answering them round the table with their neighbours and things, rather than having to get a TO kind of equivalent thing. That just basically didn't happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing a tournament can do is it can exacerbate the nature of those discussions and how deep into the rules you go. So you can develop that, but in general, the AT crowd's a little bit more chill.
Yeah.
At the moment, and that's in part because it was already a more mature crowd percentage wise, but then as a quote unquote dead game almost, you're not getting that fresh blood in the same way that you do into other game systems.
Yeah, and it's sort of noticeable the way that was being played, because even the people, and particularly some of the restrictions they put into it, that meant that I remember there being a bit more of that, a bit more of the sort of intensity of some of the how does this rule interaction work, when it was a bit more of a, not free for all, but when you had Spy Titans and War Masters and certain, kind of unfettered access to corruptions and things. It was
those are the things that
slightly more complicated mix.
Yeah, the things that break the core mechanics of the rules.
Yeah.
Always cause that's cool. Excellent. How was Beachhead then?
It was its usual very, very good self. They had there was a few enhancements. Yeah, it was a few enhancements, I'd say, over the last couple of times. They just sort of juggled things a bit. The main trader hall felt more spacious because of the way they had laid things out. And I didn't get a sense that anyone had been sort of pushed to the back or anything like that. It just felt like it could breathe a bit more. And that might be because they had moved the sort of Star Wars display, cosplay and all sorts of Star Wars related things. That is a whole area in itself. They'd moved that into the front sort of foyer area, which actually worked really quite well. It reminded me a little bit of parts of the Secret Cinema setup, where you had almost like a corridor that was set up like a Mos Eisley cantina thing you were walking through. It was very cool. Which you didn't get that sense when it was in the middle of a trader hall, where it had this sort of, they'd done their best, but I think that worked better. And similarly, the Titan Walk guys were out in the main foyer, if you call it that, the main sort of a reception area, along with the usual board game cafes. Just felt they all had more room, really. So some quite clever adjustments, because you could kind of see things more easily, see the events going on. I would imagine it was slightly bigger because of its popularity. It seems to have continues to attract quite a lot of interest for different traders and different
I wonder how many shows they have down that area. I'm sure there are a few, but how far do you have to travel to Bristol? How far is Bristol from Bournemouth? It's decent.
3 hours. Yeah.
Was it really that far? Oh, I thought it might be a little bit. Yeah, I suppose it is actually. What else is there?
I might be exaggerating. Probably more like 2, probably. I mean, it's an hour and a half to 2 to Bath.
So that's quite a large area between those two. So going north, there's not a huge amount, is there?
No, and Dorset's a bit of a killer with no motorway, so moving around down there is not.
I live in East Sussex,
necessarily straightforward. Yeah, it's not super straightforward, and I don't know if there's a critical mass. I mean, Devon's. There's quite a lot of people playing games in general down in the southwest, but yeah, I just don't think there's as many. Whereas you go a bit north, go a bit there into that band that's up there with sort of Reading and that, and you've got much more going on there. But Dorset, not so much. So it's quite a. I heard a few people complaining about it, but then there were people travelling from all over. I mean, like really long distances, specifically for the AT event. But there was some people saying, "Oh, it's a pain to have to come down here." But
this is Warhammer Fantasy Battle Days. The guys from Derby. Oh my God, we've got to travel to Portsmouth for an event. It takes forever. It's like we do that every time we go to an event in East Sussex. Like there's no, our closest event was Portsmouth, and it was 2.5 hours away for quite a while. Like we go up to Derby, to Nottingham, to these events, and it is, 3.5 hours on a good day. Like get over it. Like, we'll travel up to Stockport and drive home at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night and go up to work in the morning. But it's what they're used to, because if you're in the middle of the country, particularly, you're never more than an hour and a half away from a big event, kind of happening. Yeah, so get over it. The other funny one was like being in Birmingham, being in Dudley, and every single person from the north, and I mean the proper north, was like, "Cool, pints were expensive," and every single person from the south was, "Oh, pints were almost half price."
That's
so,
a good way of tracking it, isn't it? The regionalism.
Yeah, it was proper. Like, yeah, it was always the same. But no, that's good. It's just it's weird how parts of the year change, how awkward they are as your life evolves.
Yeah.
And late February is now the Blood Bowl Kent the Blood Bowl team championships in UK team championships. I don't know what they're called. Are in Kent in Canterbury Cricket Ground. That's late February, early March. You got Beachhead, like the local Tunbridge like game show, war game show happens around this time. A week after they did a war game show at the same venue in Tunbridge, they did a geek fest thing, which had like just gaming and like people dressed up as Ghostbusters and whatever, a proper like one of those. And I couldn't go to either of those two because I was like sorting stuff out for the boys, my 4-year-old's birthday at the weekend, and the weekend before that it was like there was stuff going on, and it's and then at the end of March you got Adepticon Salute, end of March.
Early April.
Oh, is it early April now? Okay, but it used to be the same weekend as Adepticon for quite a while. So like this whole like period, and there's something else going on as well. It's like quite congested, and I don't, unless I can book my boy's birthday up well in advance, I have to keep a couple of weekends, maybe 2 or 3 weekends free, depending on when it can be. So it's like, like all the things I want to do fall on that same time. In reality, there's just too many things I want to do, probably. Yeah, so I'll have to settle for going to Salute, and then probably UK Games Expo, at least for a day.
That one appeals. I've just never done that one. I
can pick you up on the way up, so I'm sure.
Beachhead's got a thing that I've always found to be quite good. It is the mixture of a gaming event and a kind of trade thing at the same time. There's relatively few of those. I say that without any great data.
There aren't in the UK. Like UK Games Expo does it. Even like the LGT, they have 3 like stands of stuff. It's not a lot.
It doesn't really count. It's not really the same.
Exactly.
Certainly nothing of that scale. It's not got the same thing.
Reading Warfare.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Those sorts of things. There's some of those.
And I'm sure there are others. Yeah,
Bellweg down in South London.
Yeah, and we're talking about the South. I'm sure like they have like the other cons up Yorkshire, Manchester way. I'm sure do that, but
yeah, they are some, but this one really seems to do that quite well.
Yeah, it's good, and it's because of the time of year. It's relatively cheap to get hotels if you're organised.
Yeah, I booked 2 hotels when the thing went out. They sold out their tickets in less than a day for the Titanicus thing. As soon as they went up, ticket for that straight onto the hotels. See what was that? Which is stupid because it's fairly obvious which weekend it's going to be. So I thought, why didn't I do this earlier? But anyway, jumped in and went to book the place I went to last time, which was very reasonably priced. This time was quite a bit more. It was sort of 180, something like that. 180 quid it was going to be, but it's a not really nice hotel, swimming pool, nice thing going on. And I really enjoyed it last time. It's like there was a point after day one where I was in the sort of hotel pool. There was no one else there. Yeah, there was like a steam room, the pool. I'm like, this is quite a good way of doing an event, but it was quite expensive. And then I found the hotel next to it that were also at a pool. Now its reviews were nowhere near as good. A lot of people saying it was hated, should we say? But it was 60 quid for the weekend.
Does not matter.
Yeah, and I was like, that's okay.
We used to go to the Adelphi every year around this time. Actually, it was quite often on St Paddy's weekend for a big Warhammer event, and would stay at the Adelphi because then I could wear my slippers all day because I'd never leave the hotel. And talk about dated, but we just like shove 4 people in a room. It doesn't matter. Saturday night, I got back at 1:30. The other guys got back at 4. Like they were in the room for 3.5 to 4 hours.
Exactly.
It just does not matter what your room's like. Like we'll survive. If breakfast is included, it's a bonus.
Yeah. Well,
So
even in this
yeah,
case, I actually chose it almost because it didn't have the breakfast, because that
sure,
always would delay me, because I was like, well, I paid for this. I kind of want to do this. I want to set up well. But actually, just popped to a cafe and found this incredible little bakery, just to the left of the place. I was like, well, that's perfect. I can get some food there, much better than this, and much better value. And yeah, so accommodation was very, very good.
nice.
Worked the treat, roll into the place. Event was run really smoothly.
Man, I just
Yeah.
want to say, if this is your first time listening to the show, we do have a tendency to ramble. This episode might be a little bit more extreme than normal.
We haven't
Forgive
spoken in a
us.
while, so we
No,
can't
we haven't.
tie
No,
these in.
it's fair.
In.
Oh, I mean, yeah, yeah. Cool. So a bit of painting, getting ready, and then you ended up buying. You took those heads to buy yourself a best sports vote, yeah?
That was entirely normally I just take some sweets,
Don't
but this
trust him,
time
people. Don't
this
trust him.
time
2
I took
years in a row.
well, third actually.
See, third. He's doing something.
So I
He's
skipped a
not
year.
that nice, honest.
I skipped a year. Yes, I was very touched to come away with that one then again. Yeah, the first 2 years was a thing. And then this year happened again. Which,
Because he's
given
got a
the
posh
quality of
accent,
people there,
guys.
yeah, I know. It's that smile. That is I just do what I can.
Yeah.
They
Bless
changed
you.
it up as
Awesome.
well last.
Try and stop you winning.
I wonder. They changed it last year where they said rather than speak perhaps a lot to my performance in the first 2 years, it was used to be the lowest ranked person with the most sports votes. But they changed that last year to the highest ranked person with
That is the more sensible way of doing it.
Well, they said that. They said let's do it that way because actually it's harder to be gracious in victory than it is to be gracious in loss.
You would think.
So that was a thing, but yeah, it was. But what is also interesting with new recruit is not only do you get lots of stats because all the lists are available and it can kind of pull stats across
Yeah.
there, but you can also see votes cast for best sport,
Well, that's
best
weird.
painted. Yeah, which I'm slightly surprised that they published, or rather made it available. Maybe they couldn't not hide it effectively. Well, maybe there was something to it, but yeah, I was slightly sort of surprised. But yeah, anyway, that was a thing that you could see that, and which was particularly interesting for the painting contest because perhaps to the surprise of no one, but based on that, the person who won it was Rob Murray who won that. He got over half the vote.
Right.
Landslide victory and well deserved. The amount of effort, I would encourage anyone listening to this to go and look at the photos online
Is he on
that.
Instagram or anything like that?
I will look that up while I continue speaking. What his Instagram is? He absolutely is.
So,
But Beachhead is well covered for this
I
anyway.
mean, I've
Unbelievable.
said for a while that I actually think nominating best sports is not the best way of doing that. And this is not to have a go at the guys who run Beachhead. It happens the vast majority of places, to be fair. But it means you've only got a choice of one of 5 in heresy cases now. Quite a lot of the time, one of 4 people it could be 80 people at an event, right? And you've got to pick one of 4, or maybe 2 of 4 to give first and second to. And sometimes it's like, oh, it comes down to how the game went can affect like how your interactions go if you know each other. Certainly, if they're on a podcast or a YouTube channel or wrote the rules of the game, seeing all those kind of things. But also, just 100% personality types. Like, the two, big boisterous guy who's a lot of fun might be slightly intimidating to someone who's quite chilled. Doesn't mean they weren't good sports. Just means they're never gonna connect that
You're not
way.
going to gel. Yeah.
No, the question is, are there better ways of doing it?
I was going to say, what are the alternatives?
Which is why it stays the same, I think. And for me, at my events, I started taking it on to me or the crew running it to choose the best sports, to be able to walk around the venue, to appreciate, those two guys are having lots of fun. Oh, they will do. They're best mates. And actually, a lot of the time, they're not the best sports to each other. But that kind of thing, Tom Sargent, I had to tell him once, I said, you would have been in run for best sports, but you played 5 people you knew. So, you chose those matchups as well. They weren't random. I allowed grudges, and he grudged 5 people. Fine, but is that the same value as someone playing 5 randoms, being a great person to those people? And it can come down to little things, because you can see things. You can see, like, maybe someone helping someone learn stuff through a game, or someone in adversity still trying to make sure the other opponent has a good game, and it might not be that person's favorite game, but actually they haven't really understood what their opponent has done to try and keep that game fun. So and is that perfect? Of course not. But I can also see, then you can also judge it on things away from the table as well.
That's a good point. Things away from the table is quite an interesting aspect of it, because any part of it, I mean, one of the major benefits of having a best sport part to it is the incentivizing people being the best, kind of everyone trying to make the event and being participants in it as good as it possibly can be. That's why I did those tokens, because I thought, well, I would love it. The thing some people did in previous years was they would have dice, custom dice that they either had or otherwise of their gaming group or otherwise, and they'd give those to their opponents. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. That's a nice little thing to do. I've heard Age of Sigmar going bonkers with some of the events that they do, where people were bringing range of baked goods and all loads of different things. They were doing themed things, having jelly shots and stuff like this. There's a whole load of stuff you can do to kind of elevate the whole experience, which if you're trying to do that very specifically with your opponent, that's one thing. It's a good point, though, that it does sort of lock it in to just your opponent rather than being.
But you can also get, as I say, the podcast thing's a true thing, but also the cliques are a true thing.
Yeah, they are.
And not just that, but knowing people who oh yeah, that must be so and so. He's a really good player, and I've heard about him, and I've seen his army on Instagram a lot, and got 8,000 likes. Do some people get best sports votes that are influenced by their painting? I'm absolutely sure it's happened. Is that intended? Not always. Is it malicious? No, but it happens. So no system's perfect, but I like the fact that so I'm not really running events anymore. Maybe that'll change when I get some more free time. Who knows? And mental energy. But I like the ability to take it into account think that's kind of gone on over a weekend. And award that. I think I called it spirit of heresy at the time, because are you turning up on time? Some people are notoriously late to everything, and that's fine, but it can make a hard job for setting for the organisers. I've got you against Fred, and Fred's going to be late. Okay, right. I don't really want you missing out on a game, and trying to sort that out. And it's like, well, okay, Fred. Yeah, you were great fun while you were here, but actually, you didn't do this, or your army was complicated and weird and not in a good way, and and that way also you don't have people going, who do I vote for? I better vote for him. All those kind of pressures that can come into it. And that's before you get onto people buying alcohol for their opponent, trying to get a best sports score, because I've seen it happen. people have different motivations, and different things can affect the way they approach a weekend. And sometimes wargaming can be a believed to be a validation of someone, like success in some form or another. I'm going to this event to do X, and there's nothing wrong with that per se, but it can sometimes push itself into something that's not as healthy. So
Yes, I agree to that to a
well, I mean
point.
that's more
I think
tournaments.
that's
To be
more of
fair,
a problem
more of a
for
tournament.
yeah. I think that's more of a problem for people gunning for particular success in the sort of generalship side of things.
But I'll
Not
tell you
so much
one.
the
I'll
other
tell you
aspects,
one
but
where it wasn't that. I had an award called, what was it? What's Sigemund's title? Emperor's Champion. I had an award once given out called Emperor's Champion, and this person was desperate to win that award, and it wouldn't have mattered if it was gaming or it was something else. Their whole aim for that weekend became trying to win that award, and when they didn't win it, there was kind of an accusation towards me that I'd sabotaged it, which I hadn't done, because it became all about that. And I believe had that award been, say, sports, I believe that there would have been an overt attempt, because it was all encompassing for that person was winning that award, and that's
is that a problem?
It is if it's not if it's handled in the right way.
No.
But if that is someone going around trying to secure paint votes, or I'll just point these things out, it's how it affects the environment as much
If
as
it brings
anything
the
else.
vibe down, it's entirely counterintuitive. So I agree with that point.
Yeah,
If it somehow makes it a little bit unpleasant, then yeah.
To the point where this guy was like, "Oh, you put me up against that person, so I didn't win that." Like, no, I didn't.
That's particularly problematic
Thanks.
if that becomes problematic if you've got kind of a single point, which you typically do, don't you? You kind of got a team leader as a TO, with assistants who rarely actually have a genuine collective with these sorts of things.
Yeah,
Because it's a
and
shame that was directed.
It's
rather
extreme.
than
Don't get me wrong, but I've seen people desperate to win painting awards, and people do things the right way, and the odd person trying to make sure that not that they sabotage anyone else, but try to it becomes that you get towards blurred lines, you get towards grey areas.
that what you've described there, that clearly is a problem. It's where it's crossed over into something that's detrimental, and which is exactly what it's there not to do.
And
and
I say, sometimes I can definitely be accused of looking for problems that aren't there. Like when I'm preparing for things, that's the way my mind works. I'll be like, do we need to protect against this? And then half the time people go, no, Greg, don't be stupid. I'm like, well, just saying. Or it's something that could be handled if
being
it comes
prepared
up.
is fine. It's not ideal if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No.
If it's something that you've sort of said, and it's clear that was either a problem in the past or it hadn't occurred to people that it could even be a thing. That's not ideal, but this certainly none
Anyway,
of what we're describing
no.
has ever been in evidence. It's only ever been wildly good-natured. I'm increasingly conscious of it potentially, and I'm pleased to say I've never seen it, and I don't get a sense of it being cliquey at the Titanicus event there. Partly because I wonder if it is just a certain number of people playing the game.
Is there? Right. This is because cliques don't always have to be cliques, because it's the perception of. So you are a very approachable person who is also very amiable to walking up to everyone and being open, and you're very kind of in the mix socially at these events, right? Other people newer to the scene potentially come in and be like, oh, that's so. Oh, they're talking to them. Oh, those people are in their friendship groups, and it's not. This is the problem with it. Cliques is almost the wrong word, but it sort of works in that it can appear impenetrable. And
I've referenced it because I remember experiencing it at another event where I felt, there's a lot of kind of in jokes and, as you say, friendship groups, just familiarity here. And as a result of witnessing that, or sort of having a sense of that from someone and being on the outside of that, I thought, I don't want that.
Sure.
I'd like to avoid that for other people. So I get a sense that perhaps other people are thinking in a similar way.
There's
So
that weird.
This event, there was quite a lot. There was quite a lot of regular faces who I've seen every one of the previous ones of these who weren't there for various reasons. Were held up with a number of things, and there was quite a few of that. There was a few people I was thinking, I'm really looking forward to seeing them, and they weren't there.
Sure.
Which got on the one hand, you're like, it's a shame, but on the other hand, that there were other people there who hadn't met before, and I was having conversations with them, and trying to make sure everyone, is part of it. And this is outside, which is where your point about it's interesting to have an aspect of a best sport, or perhaps some other award or something that's incentivizing people to do something outside of the games themselves.
You could even do both. Like you could have a traditional best sports and then a spirit of kind of thing. To really play it around. I say I'm not a massive fan of best sports. I think you tend to find the same person wins it all the time because they have a manner that allows them to to be in that conversation. And that's fine. That's not a bad thing, but it just means, well, cool. Yeah, so and so's one of four people's going to win it because that's what usually happens.
Yeah, which is the same with the painting awards. You sort of think,
painting
people are
feels
this. You're like,
a bit different though because at least you've got to put that. I know. Painting. I also. Maybe this is me. Maybe it's because I'm not very good at painting and I don't win best sports very often. But I like to again have a painting award that is non kind of finished result based, if you know what I mean, is non like pure aesthetics.
Yeah.
But in part because I can't tell you who is the best painted.
Yeah, well,
because I'm not
exactly that. That's always the question. When someone says best, is like define best.
Yeah, mine was always favourite army.
Yeah,
because
and a lot of painting competitions have started to address that, haven't they?
Yeah.
Where they have separate awards for that. They have like
if you've got the right, if you've got the right people who can judge, you can have best painted and favourite army.
Yeah.
But I would very rarely make best painted the player voted one. I would have that as favourite army because again, I've seen people who are interested in winning best painted, who are very competent, quite technical painters, watch someone write someone else's name down and go, how can you think that's better than mine? It's like they didn't, they just preferred it.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental difference.
I found the Rob Murray's Instagram. It's Fimbar, Fimbar 11 is Rob Murray, and the effort. I mean, it's rarely is there such a well-deserved
Fimbar 11.
Yeah. The amount of effort that he put into that setup, because it was a display board. The display board was coordinated with the bases so that they locked into place, and it was incredible the amount of effort.
That's enough about him.
All right. I just thought it was great.
Just a proper try hard.
Yeah, and a try hard that has entirely paid off. I'm here
whatever.
Well
it's just the same as all those Golden Demon winners. I did want to bring something. Oh yeah, that's right. Well, we were talking about the difference between cliques and friendship groups, and there is that weird hinterland between the two, where people, as you say, it's not a clique, but because they don't see each other, they meet each other at events, and it becomes just a time-consuming thing to catch up with their friends. So, as you say, like, and because potentially with being able to challenge friends and be like, oh, cool, yeah, I haven't seen you in ages, let's play a game. That kind of thing means means you're getting a form of clique which isn't really a clique, because they are quite open people who It's just it's not very penetrable for other people, and it's it is what it is at the end of the day. But I think both sides of that actually lose out, because you don't get to meet your new how many times have I met people who live within 30 miles of me at events
Well,
that
the
you
same thing
never knew
happened.
gamed.
Exactly the same thing happened at this event.
Yeah.
Every person I played was someone I hadn't played before, and in most cases hadn't spoken to before these events. There is one exception, sort of, to that. There was Simon Baker, who I would call a friend. Because he used to live very close to me here in London. He used to live down in Richmond. He's since moved to Sweden with his wife, and he came over. He came over to me after one of the beachheads, and we got talking and became friends. He came here. We both set up our armies and then chatted until about 1 a.m. Without rolling a single dice, and just hung out. And I went over to his once, and we played some Titan Death, but never actually played Titanicus. We got drawn against each other and had a cracking game in the middle of it. So he's
That's
the
cool.
exception. But the other four I'd never met before. And the fifth opponent, Luke Turner, he said, "Oh, have you travelled far?" Yeah, I've come down from London. Oh, whereabouts in London? West London. No way. Whereabouts? Ealing. What? And it turns out we keep going with that game, and we got closer and closer. He lives not 10 minutes walk from me. I mean, it's bonkers. He lives in West Ealing, and I'm in just down the road.
But
And
to
you
be
think,
fair,
well,
there's
what
a
were the
lot of
chances?
people live near where you live.
Yes, but then you haven't got to be very far away
No, I
for
know.
it to be a really annoyingly difficult to get to with people not running cars typically, and things like that become the thing. But then to be down in Bournemouth of all places, but then that's the nature of this
Are
kind
you
of game.
complaining about the ability to get around in London?
Yeah.
Well, without a car. Well, welcome to the countryside, my friend.
Where do you think I
Anyway,
grew up?
no, it's fine. Yeah, but stop moaning about it. Anyway, right. So we talked for far too long on this episode. I haven't even told you what I have been sort of not doing. In fact, you've been doing a little bit of as well. But we got sent some custodians from Games Workshop.
Yeah, didn't we? Yeah.
I am going to fail to get the Dreadnought done in time. And as I say, 4-year-old's birthday, I've got 7 very gold men currently and a very gold tank on the table. I have started the Sotek green cloak on the.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. I did do my normal thing of, oh yeah, screw it, let's just glue these guys down on the thing and just crack on. And then was like, yeah, gold inside of cloaks that you can't reach with a brush is not a good look. So let's cut those bases off. Put them on 25 mils. Put them in my little GW holdies so I can try and get in the cloaks. But hopefully I've got a day off tomorrow, and hopefully I can have at least a few hours of boshing some Sotek green on some cloaks and some silver. Oh no! And is that one bolter that I haven't pinned? Oh, I haven't drilled the barrel. Okay, I'm doing that as well. First thing tomorrow. So I got the Sentinel Guard, the Captain, the Tank, and the Dread, and you got what are the Shield guys
I've
called
got the
now?
Sentinels guys. You've got the Custodian Guard. I think they are.
Yeah, that's right. Whatever they call them now. What do you think of the new kits?
They're very good. There's no two ways
mama.
about it.
Mama.
They are excellent, aren't they?
The models, the height, the dimensions, the old school look are
they are
a massive improvement.
Straight out of the artwork. They are straight out of that artwork from the Sabretooth Games era.
Did we talk about? I think we talked about this in the later part, but future us might repeat this. But Henry from Cult of Paint on their Twitch was talking about, and I might have been talking about this with John French for even further future episode even. Henry was talking on their Twitch show about how he feels that Heresy, particularly all the plastics, the Mark IIs, all those, the Terminators, the Custodians, particularly with the helmets, have all been far more visions of Heresy than the 5 years ago design 5-6 years ago design that. And he feels that Andy Hawes led that, which wouldn't surprise me at all because his armies are, I mean, they're even more old school than that in some ways, but like to the point where it wouldn't surprise me to get a really old school, flipping javelin back. Nothing like that seems to be too far off course. So yeah, like the for me, as soon as the new Space Marines were done, I was like, yeah, cool. I'm not having Space Marines anymore. These Custodians, I'm not having old Custodians anymore. I'm going to sell on mine. Right,
There's an element. There's an element of me was like that, but on the other hand, I was like, no, I have too many, and that's silly. It's just going to take me too long to do that. I understand where that comes from.
Yeah.
People were starting projects, and people do move projects on the whole time. With the Custodians in particular, they don't look bonkers next to each other. The helmets are quite different. The helmets are much more elegant in these versions for sure, but in terms of sort of height and stature and
just so
build,
more live though.
Yeah, they are. But then some of the poses throw that off, particularly these Sentinel guys. The more wide-legged stance, they are slightly chunkier.
I mean, the tanks is an interesting one because I built the tank, and what a piece of kit! Like I'm not a very good hobbyist. Let's be honest. Okay, so there's a couple of joins here where I could have glued it better, and the nature of the way it's being painted means that it will look crap on a couple of bits. But are there a lot of bits? Yes. Is it really well designed? Oh yes. And it's plastic and it's light and it felt like I'm not like, oh, what a wonderful kit to build normally, but it felt good to build, and it's simple, straightforward. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like the side panel engine bits, like you put the engine top in, you put the engines on the base, but like it's 2 bits of plastic essentially for the major part of it, and you compare that to trying to build the resins, like night and day. Really good kit. Plastic dreadnought, way too many pieces, but I'm sure it. I'm sure they've got their reasons for doing that.
It's going to have a certain posability that is going to be quite appealing,
which I can get completely wrong. The character's fantastic. How was your build on yours? Shields, fine,
straightforward. Yeah, I am
cool.
It's got
Misericordia.
That was fiddly. there's no 2 ways about that because you've got the freedom to kind of place it sort of anywhere. I tried to follow the references and the suggestions, but there's unlike the rest of it, there's no locked place to put these things.
Not all of mine have their Misericordia showing.
I have with these ones because I like that thing, but it's particularly with the swords. There's 2 of them where it gets really fiddly to put it in a sensible place. But overall, I was quite impressed that the top knots don't
I didn't think that was going to go well
with the shoulder pads. I thought it was going to limit the head position, and actually, it's worked quite well.
You've got to make sure you get the one thing. I just kind of was like, oh yeah, cool, because it's one of those ones where you build 5 bodies and then it says, okay, or 6 bodies. Now you've got your 6 bodies. Here are the different things you can make. It's semi-important to get the right. Well, no, it's a bit more than semi-important. You will struggle if you get with the guys with the spears. You will struggle if you don't get the right body with the right spears, because the arm positions and the helmet positions sometimes, because the hair can get in the way of the shoulder pads. Oh, the shoulder pads can get in the way of the crests. I did find the one thing I did find was glue the top half of the arm to the shoulder, glue the forearms to the weapon, and then glue forearms and weapon to the top half of the shoulder, because there was a couple, and it might have been the way I built them, but it's easier to glue because the hand's on the weapon, and there's like a little notch where the thumb goes in, and it's easier to manhandle that with my chubby fingers when it's just the arms, and I can get that set in, and then a little bit of glue, and then maneuver the forearms onto the upper arms is a lot easier than trying to work out the angle, trying to make sure it's pushed in right, and getting the thumb slot into the hand. Maybe that's just me, but I found it easier to do it that way around. Once I did it that way around, they fit pretty well.
That sounds like there's more of a difference between the
Well, it's
shield
because
guys and the
it's the
spear guys than I
classic
thought.
thing of having to have like the weapon goes across the body. It's got to be exactly right to fit into both hands.
Mm.
You've got a sword and a shield, and if they're slightly wrong, they don't interact with each other anyway, so you can get away with it.
They're
Whereas these,
independent. I mean, I
you
left the.
can't.
You do definitely want to have the right hand paired with the
Sure.
right shield. Well, no, the shields are okay, but the right hands need to be paired with the right
Yeah.
arms. To get the wrist kind of the right angles and things. But beyond that, as you said, you've got the freedom to put whatever head and top knot in whatever combination you like on any model. You might want to just be cautious of the pose so that it looks
Test run
sensible.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Because
I've painted mine with blue tacked heads and blue tacked them to the bases after
Right.
your tip, and I'm deeply grateful of that tip because
There are
trying to paint those
definitely
cloaks, oh dear.
Yeah, there are definitely heads that wouldn't fit on some of the bodies because of where the plumes are going, because they'd hit the shoulder pads and just wouldn't work. But yeah, essentially with the hands on the things, it's if you get them right and there's a slight issue between the forearm and the arm, you can hide that easier. But if you're if you're trying to force the hand onto the end of the arm and there's a slight issue, like it's noticeable because of where it is. Like, so I haven't. There's like one where the angles, like, yeah, that'll do. Well, I've obviously done something wrong. But the rest went together fine. Once I did that, I was basically on the first one. I was like, oh, cool, do it this way, and it was also a lot easier to get because on one or two of them, it's quite close to the body, and you're trying to make sure that because it's one hand up, one hand down. So, like, okay, make sure that thumb goes right onto that point, and then you're having to turn the model kind of over because the join line is almost 180 on the model to see is it sitting in the right place exactly there. But yeah, the fantastic kids. I cannot wait to see what they do with the rest of them.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see what people do with these. Particularly, these are following the principle that we've had with the marine kits, where you've got 5 or 6 set poses, but within that there's enough variety with weapon configurations and different heads and things that you can do plenty. It doesn't feel as limiting as having completely free range.
Proper good hobbyists can do a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
The more I'm looking at this as a result of this conversation, I've brought up some of the Visions of Heresy imagery and artwork of Custodes. I knew it was close. I hadn't realized how many fine cues. It is extraordinary, actually, the more I look at it. And they've that elegance, as you say, that they've got, which differentiates them from the heavier weight Marines, I think is really interesting. And I tell you what it's also doing, it's differentiating the range further and further from their 40k counterparts. And I don't mean just Custodes, it's particularly apparent here. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do going forward. Because you had a dual kit previously.
Because I was literally on a Discord earlier, and some chap who I think is it's one of those ones where I'm almost like, do I just never talk to this person ever again? Because I can just see it being trouble. But they were like, oh yeah, they bought those Custodes, yeah, resin or it's either plastic or Legends now, and I'm like, why are you talking about 40k with them? Like, we don't know what's happening there. These are heresy Custodes. Now it could be that they used across 40k, and you could use either anyway.
Well,
but
very unusually, they commented on that on the stream. Yeah, they said because they were getting bombarded with questions. They said on that stream where they were revealed, the only place we've seen it discussed up to probably around the time this goes out, that the vehicles, dreadnoughts and things will be usable, will have rules, 40k. And you think, okay, That's interesting. And now presumably those are going to be Legends, PDFs, kind of equivalent things. But the main kit is now going to be tricky because presumably they're going to retire the previous kit, the previous sword
You
and
would think
spear
so.
guys. But will they? I don't know. I would imagine they will. But then that leaves the
You're never
wardens
quite
in a
sure, are
tricky
you?
place. That leaves
Yeah,
the wardens in a tricky place as a kit.
yeah.
Um,
It's
and they've been really clear in the way they've been releasing things. I never said it, but it's been very clear that they wanted to differentiate the ranges. They don't want to have a shared kit. Demons, I think, might eventually go away from that perspective as well, because that was the classic one that would cross complete game systems, let alone 30k, 40k.
yeah.
The Custodes went across 30k and 40k. This
And
is almost a
sisters as
perfect
well.
opportunity. Yes, this is almost a perfect opportunity for there to be a differentiation, and I don't think there will be. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do.
You do wonder why you'd keep these and the normal ones on the shelf.
Yeah,
It
I just don't think you would
a
you?
shop owner must be thinking, why? Why am I?
Yeah,
I've got these ones that don't sell because they're the old ones. Now, if you're new, maybe you do like the old ones. Maybe because you have an issue with wokeism, you prefer the old ones because that's what makes them cooler. But in reality, people are going to be buying these ones. So
100%.
yeah, so it would be amazing for them to keep the two lines going.
I think
But
I don't know.
but there's that weird percentage chance that they do. But as you say, like, I mean, if the vehicles are going to cross over,
Well, that's
like,
what's weird. It's kind of
yeah,
indicating that it is. And what I mean, you've got something like the drop pod, where the old drop pod is now a 30k specific one, and the nearly identical but slightly different permanently open drop pod, which comes in a 2-pack, is a 40k specific one, but it's different branding. Knights crossover, I suppose, but
knights, yeah. And you wouldn't think they're going to change. I mean, maybe they will. But also, do they not get enough data from the other armies that they can have one or two
yeah,
crossover armies?
yeah,
Is
maybe.
that not a fair thing that there are Space Marines and mech and Solar Auxilia and whatever for Heresy,
Mm.
and there are 24 armies for 40k,
Yeah,
and the Custodes figures and the Demon figures and the Knight figures don't really change the dial a huge amount on that. They could
no.
probably guesstimate. They could also get some of that, the percentage of that data they could get from events.
Mm.
40k, there are X amount. Have we seen 8% of all players events are using custodians, talons, whatever.
That's
They
probably
got
not an ideal representation for a retail business, though.
no, but when it's only one aspect of what they're doing, if they're doing it for sales, like justification and what have you, um, but they know it's selling both anyway. Like like do as I say, do the talons of the emperor and do demons have to be separated like that when you've got enough other lines
Mm.
that are giving you that information? Do you remember certainly the old custodians weren't designed by the heresy team
No.
because they were designed for Prospero.
Mm.
So these are, and all those box games were designed by
Mainline.
the
As it was. But books and
40
box games, whatever they were
box
called.
and box games and the 40k teams, like the 40k departments for designing, whereas these were designed by the heresy team, and they feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
maybe that's a change as well. Anyway, this is one of our longest intros ever. Apologies.
I would say this is, as soon as we're talking about models like this is the main thing. We haven't even talked about painting them, but anyway.
No, because that's because I've hardly painted them. Color Forge Gold. Don't know what it's called. Color Forge Gold. I sent you a photo, a bad photo. You're like, oh, that looks really cool, and you're like, it seems to work. And then my missus walked in and went, oh, I really like the gold on those. So
Is there
I
a better
think
accolade?
Color Forge is probably my new Retributor. I'm going to use that instead of Retributor because again, it's like £10 at the local shop.
Yeah.
Retributor is a little bit more. I quite like Color Forge. If you're going to like UK Games Expo or Salute, they're normally there. They're normally doing a deal on buying like for 3 or 6 or however many cans worth doing. But yeah,
I've gone a
how's your painting
slight,
going?
yeah, I've gone a slightly different route. I've been using the new Vallejo metallic sets that they've
Oh yeah,
had out. Well, I'll use this as an opportunity to
airbrush.
give those a work. Yeah, I started sort of base coated an airbrush, and I'm now just working in washes and things. And I
Sure.
think I'm going to then need to go back in to get them as bright as I want them to be. But
Okay.
at the moment, they're popping quite a bit. But
Mm.
yeah, they're coming on, but they are fiddly. That's the only thing. That's a good thing. They
There's
are
a
just
lot.
rich in detail. Painting those ropes and things they've got on them, and the details, even the
Oh,
leather
don't.
bits, the ropes are a challenge, but it's a nice
I
problem to have.
I do wonder if I missed a trick on these and didn't try. If I hadn't practiced my dry brushing, my artist opus style dry brushing.
It crossed my mind today, funnily enough, about that. I've actually been doing quite a lot of work on the cloaks and getting those to be sort of blended to get the classic kind of look on them. But
I mean,
yeah,
again, I'm Mr. Basic Painter. I don't know what I'm going to do once I've got Sotek green over all the cloaks. Might just wash in there or something to shade in there. But that'll be certainly is my kind of colour of choice at the moment. But yeah, a long way to go. You will see pictures of those. Hopefully, you'll see some pictures when this releases, because of course, this one's late because we can't talk about it until we can talk about it. Anyway, let's stop that. Let's go talk news. Let's look at the news for the last month and a half. I'm trying to remember where we got to. We didn't do the preview, did we?
God, when was the last show?
No. Yeah, exactly. I think it was before. It was like the 17th. It was like the day after the preview.
What, the 17th of December?
January.
January,
But
right.
because it was late. But it was a review, and I can't remember if we talked about. But we have like the custodians. Cool. We're talking about them. That's fine. The Skitarii. Don't think we've talked about these guys. What do you think of the new Bionic?
Skitarii.
Yeah.
I was unsure initially. I love that Skitarii are a thing now, and wanted them to be a thing. It was sort of being suggested in some places that they weren't as big a deal as they were in the later years, and similar. There was suggestions of that. They just didn't seem to feature really in Heresy, and now they do, and which I'm pleased because they do in various books. And I just think they're cool as a concept, and I really like that they've gone their own direction in this rather than just do an updated version or predated version of what we see in the standard Adeptus Mechanicus kits.
Oh,
I wasn't expecting them. It wasn't what I expected, and that's kind of cool. I think it surprised me to see what they are. Do I like
again,
them? I've grown to like them for sure.
I think there's some old. It might be Visions again. There's some old pictures of some like this. I like the idea that we can have the different forms. Yeah, I think they're cool. I think they're weird, and that's fine. Like, and they're different. They stand out. Yeah, and there are other options, right? If people do want to go a different way. In fact, 40K have released, or are going to release that new Archmagos Terminus, who's all kinds of weird with the legs up on the stone and the strange things, and then the heavy Secretary Macroclades as well. So, like, we talk about, don't cross the streams from a sales perspective, but hey, you want to go a different way with your Skitaria, then jump on those. Like, see if you can fit some of that into your army with different rules and things. Better to kind of stand out than just be Blair. Beige. No one likes beige, but make some people happy, make some people angry. You'll do better than just being middle of the road. So yeah, they look cool to me.
And they are their own thing. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I immediately sort of looked at them or looked at the idea of Scutari being a thing and thought, I have a whole bunch of the Mechanicus, the Adeptus Mechanicus ones. I'm probably going to use those when I want them. Do they fit perfectly? No, not in the same way, but given the lore of these, and I love the Scutari book, Scutari Eye book, the steel-handed
Sorry, I
Mars.
started saying Scutari. I never normally say that. Like,
Um,
apologies.
the that book is cool and has some cool lore in it. Sure, I'm sure we'll touch on that at another time. But
The one
that
we're going to
was
catch up with.
but I thought that was I just like the idea of a Mechanicum and like Tech Guard, that I'm of that era of epic of Titan Legions and Epic Space Marine and stuff, where Tech Guard were a thing, and I just love the idea of that. And these are an extension of that, a flavour of that. I thought their weapons are cool. I think some of the design choices are cool, particularly the Scutari Marshal. I'm not entirely sure he's called that, but the leader character they've got. And then the Vulturax is cool, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a great model and has been.
A good one to
And
have
it's
in
a nice,
plastic for sure.
yeah, big time. And and this is again, I was having a conversation. It was the same conversation on that Discord actually, and it was like because they were talking about the preview, and it was like, well, Heresy won't get much because they just got that big Custodes release, and it's like, well, don't get me wrong, it's a super cool release, but it's 4 units. But if you consider that spears and shields are just variations on a theme, and it was more of a, oh, cool, finally. We know it's coming. Like the plastification of all these game systems is happening. It was a matter of time. It's done very well, but it's not like, whoa, that's unexpected. So having like something cool and different with this Skitari is a really good way of doing it. It's a really nice way of doing it. And look, I kind lost my thread there, but hey, it is what it is. Let's carry on.
Yeah, I just think it's a cool set. I didn't. I mean, this might say something. I didn't go ahead with that battle group.
Cool.
Because they announced the Custodes before that released,
Yeah.
and that did affect my decision of whether or not to go ahead with it. I thought I'm
Oh,
very
mate.
much excited by the Custodes. I need to redirect resources.
Yeah, and I say I had plans. I thought I was going to be off work a lot longer than I was, so I was like, yeah, I've got loads of time to get these sorted. And then it was like, oh no, actually, I can get back to work and earn money, so I'm going to have to do that. And then haven't had a much chance to paint these, which is why I've got more than you. My bad on that one, Howard. But it's a great set, and
It is.
there'll be more down the line. And I've got some credit with my element thing. I'm suspecting there's like a small part of me that's expecting for a Cities of Sigmar announcement at Adepticon. That's my cope at the moment, is like, please, because I want to play the army and I want it to be different. So I'm like, oh, where do I spend that money that I've got in my element account? Like there's too many things. So, and I've still got loads of specials to get to 40k. So, but hey, it is what it is. And then they dropped the new glaive.
Yes.
Lovely,
And
lovely tank.
that was cool. Yeah.
I have the most expensive glaive in the world, which for my wolves, which is actually an old resin glaive body with the Custodes, the big tank. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, the side panels of that on the glaive. So I think the total cost of the model,
it's a lot.
a good 8-9 years ago,
Oh, what
was like,
not the Telemon? Oh yeah, the
no,
transport.
the
The transport.
transport.
You
I
got a
can't remember.
grab glaive.
Yeah, and it's like 240 odd quid's worth of model back then, something that maybe 220. Yeah, and I'm just like, my friend did made it. I bought it off of him, and I'm like, cool. It's like an old relic, it's a relic converted into a glaive. So I don't need to go and buy a plastic one because I think it looks cool. I just need to paint it up. but the glaive is a cool looking tank.
The
And
glaive
again,
is a cool looking
just
tank.
like more again with the whirlwind, and we talk about these later. More stuff, more plastic.
I kind of love it though. The glaive, I always have.
Yeah.
I've always thought it's got a certain just the slight ridiculousness of it, but is cool, and it's this this like bizarre.
It's also never got a space marine poking out the top, which I sometimes think helps.
Yeah,
it's like serious tank. It's like no, all the hatches are down.
Yeah, because this thing is a bit weird. Yeah,
but also we're in a battle.
Yeah, and the fact that there's that extra lore about it in the accompanying book, I just makes it kind of cooler.
Sure. Well, let's stick with models because we don't know if it's coming to Heresy, but I'm sure people will make a way to make it work. What do you think of the new Knight, the Destria? Curious, isn't it?
It had been rumored that it was coming, so I was kind of expecting it, and I'd heard that it was between, filled in between an Armiger's and a Prestoris. Yeah. I didn't expect it to fill the niche that it has, and it doesn't feel kind of weird enough. It's sort of like a mini Lancer. I kind of want it to be weirder.
Sure, I very much feel this is a 40k kind of answer. It's a 40k answer to shoot. People are either bringing 18 Armigers or four knights, 5 knights, and we need something in the middle to. And I suspect that Mega Gargants are going to get something, maybe not in the middle, but something to break up, like Mega Gargant, Little Gargant, something like that as well. I could see people utilizing like this and doing some crazy weird things with it because it's just a bit different. It's quite nice that it's like it's got elements of I'm a Diddy Knight. I'm still going to keep that Prestoris kind of familial shape over the shoulders and the top. It's not quite the same, but you can see where it belongs.
But I just would have quite liked it to have filled a slightly different niche.
Yeah.
It's filling the fact that it has the kind of
what kind of niche
rocket lance. Well, that I'm not quite sure because do you make it shooty or do you make it choppy? Okay, yeah, but I just sort of wonder if they could have done it as a Mechanicum aligned one. You've got the slightly weirder esoteric weapons. Instead, it's kind of got a miniature version of the lance that a Lancer has and a little stubby cannon, stubby mortar thing.
It's got a single rocket boost. It's got boosters on the back. Little little thrusters.
Yeah.
So, I think had it been 30k, then it would have been different.
Yeah.
I think for 40k, like it's fitting a gaming niche rather than a model niche.
I also think 40k suffers a little from having, over its weapons in particular, have a certain familial design to them. The sort of shot cannon thing, I don't know what it's called on this one. What's it called? Frag Bombard. It's the same as the frag cannon. It's exactly the same language that's on the Death Watch, and then the first time I saw it was on the frag cannon on the Furioso Blood Angels Dreadnought. It's the same weapon.
Sure.
And it's got a design language that's the same. You're like, okay, but I kind of wanted to see something different.
Yeah.
As overall, the silhouette is cool. The armor is cool. I just don't love that the weapons are very similar to what we've seen elsewhere, and indeed on Knights.
But what it could do is it could lead to a Heresy version that is a different box.
Yeah.
Different setup, change, if you think about it, it's probably got one sprue that's got the bits you can change
weapons,
on it.
Yeah, different weapons.
Yeah, weapons and maybe shoulder pads, and then all of a sudden you've got a slightly different silhouette.
Well, look at the Moirax. The Moirax Knights is exactly that, isn't it? It's a kind of heresy-ized version. I do think it was a bold choice, maybe is the right way to put it. The second head option that they show in the article. First head, classic Knight, yeah, cool, love it. And actually, it's a very cool example. The second one, the grilled one, I see where they're going. That makes that model pure War Machine.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, because also
pure War Machine, and I'm like, oh, okay, you sure?
Where the Knights look very displayed legs, this feels much more skinny legs, big body, which is very War Machine, because I think the dimensions of the top make it look overly heavy.
Yeah.
Head pointing out forwards. I think you're right. Looks a little bit. Doesn't look a little bit like a Cador Jack, but has sort of an element.
There's something to it.
If the legs were smaller, it would look like a Cador Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is maybe
even the rocket lance thing. That's kind of War Machine-y.
Yeah,
The
know
Knights
what?
generally don't suffer from that, but this does, I think.
What did I listen to? Jordan Sorcery talking to Sam Pearson.
Yeah.
And former rules writer at GW, and him, very quickly kind of, talking about where they got their influences from, was like, remember, like, everyone in Games Workshop is a gamer or a nerd of some kind. So, they're going over to the cafe and they're playing Magic the Gathering, and you're hearing conversations where they're talking about Trench Crusade in the office, and, and it wouldn't be surprised me if there was a kind of an unconscious, like, kind of look at, it bled in somewhere, that there was that kind of feel to it. But I mean, it could be completely independent as well. At the end of the day, how many different types of walking, hulking, robots can you have that look like knights? So either way, but that's cool. It's got
cool that it
interesting
exists.
potential.
It's cool that it exists. It's not an instant.
No, but I could definitely see some people taking some real kind of utilizing aspects of it to make some cool stuff, just because that's what certain people do. Right, pages from the black books.
Love this.
We're getting, well, we don't really know have they actually specifically stated what we're getting from these?
They did in one of the first
early
ones,
ones.
I think. They did describe.
Yeah, I haven't gone back.
They did describe that what they're doing, they're kind of taking the lore sections of those books and packaging them up and releasing them in a staggered way, but they haven't announced it. It's not only the Legions, for example.
No, because with the Thramas Crusade ones here, and
yeah.
I was just wondering, this is brilliant from GW. Every Thursday you're getting awesome background. People who didn't have the black books are getting legitimate access to the information that was in them, if they didn't already have it some other way.
But even if it is elsewhere, the quality of this, where it's a direct digital output as opposed to a shitty scan or whatever, this is far superior to what anything else might have been, beyond having the original printed books. It's brilliant.
It's
Absolutely
about blooming time. So book 9 Crusade, this Thramas is from, it's 2020. Like,
if you'd have told me it was further away than that, I would have believed you.
Yeah,
I would have said it was a longer ago than that. But
basically 6 years on, we're getting from the last book.
I would have bet money that they would have made this into something you had to purchase, like a bound thing.
They still might
be giving it away for free.
It's brilliant. Don't get me wrong.
That is a big.
I say it's brilliant. It is brilliant. However, they also have, or they had Warhammer Vault. I don't know what's happening with that going forwards with the Black Library stuff and apps, and don't know if it's utilized. Like this could have been in there for a while.
It could have been, yes, but presumably they knew. I mean, my
and it would have.
Friend of the show, Dan, was particularly perturbed by that because he had collections and things in that, and so the loss of Warhammer Digital and Black Library and Co. They must have known that for a while, so that was never going to be an option, perhaps, to them. But they don't really have a platform now for those kinds of things.
So for those who don't know, they're shutting down Warhammer Digital and they're bringing out their app
and Black Library
and Black Library, and I mean,
I would imagine
all their audios. Well, no, most of their audios on Audible anyway. It's going to be an interesting. I downloaded every book that I ever bought. I downloaded it onto my computer anyway, so they're all. I didn't have to rush back. They're all in the files on my computer.
I'm assuming that they're going to try and get themselves out of or try and push people towards, even if they don't leave them entirely, leave some of the digital stores, because presumably this is a move to try and
I haven't even
have greater revenue. I don't know.
because it's I suspect it's more about streamlining what they have, like not streamlining, but putting it all in one in an easier manner. Because I just don't like. Are they going to stop Amazon selling their digital books? Like, it just seems like you're just going to lose sales. Like, the ability for me to turn my Kindle on, buy it in my Kindle, is what I want. I don't want to have to faff around to try and get these books down into a place where I want to read it. I don't want to read it on my iPad. Don't want to read it on my phone. I want to read it there. So I mean, it would be a bold publisher, to not go with Amazon.
I just wonder. I wonder if they are making moves to
they're not big
cut
enough.
people out, to cut out their share. But I might be being.
They're not going to. I don't think. I think if they stopped Amazon, they'd have to stop Audible as well. Same principle.
Which isn't going to happen, is it? Yeah.
No, and then they'd watch their numbers dwindle as people forget. Because also it's advertising.
Yeah.
Like, if the only place they're advertising is there in their own production, publications, and on their own digital platform, like, and Warhammer Community, no one new's going to get in. Not going to happen. So, yeah, I can't see that happening. I can't. I say, could you see any other publisher going, you know what, Amazon, we're all right?
Because it's your own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see that happening.
No, I know people have tried to do it with things that we're not iTunes as it is anymore, but it's
equivalent.
The Apple Store kind of equivalent.
If you had
to get out of that, but
if you had an alternative platform that had achieved a certain level of success and you wanted to jump onto that, different story. But not an app from Games Workshop. No, thank you.
No, quite. But back to the point, the Pages from the Black Books as a series, I think, is a really, really cool move, and I applaud it considerably.
Yeah. So much good information in there. And as I say, if you haven't read the Black Books, we talk later on about Mail Fist and what those books do, and they're very good. They are a different beast, and also as well, it's great to have Alan's work out there. In that way. And again, next month, briefly talk with John about Alan and about the Black Books. It's not just Alan. Like, lots of people worked on them, but it was, there's nothing like the Black Books. The only thing like the Black Books are the Bad Ab War and Siege of Rax, but even then, they're slightly different.
They were proto versions of it in some ways.
Yeah.
And literally in some cases.
But I mean, Vrax was much more focused as well. Like, 3 books and had to do a different job than the Heresy books. So, Bad Ab much more closely aligned. But it's brilliant stuff. There's a lot of reading in there as well.
There is, yeah.
Yeah,
these are heavyweight PDFs that they're releasing.
Yeah, 50 odd pages.
Yeah.
For like the Thromas ones, but can give you a load of cool ideas. So, awesome stuff. I think that was about it. I don't think
it is. We have had a Mechanicum release where they've released the new Myrmidon set, which I think sold out. It's quite actually tricky to get a hold of.
So I'm wondering here, because I saw people jumping on a few other things that sold out recently as well. But we are in February in the build up to a new edition of 40k.
True.
We've been here 3 years ago when the production of new releases was sub optimal in quantities, and I wonder / suspect there might be echoes of a similar thing here, that they're still making a lot. Don't get me wrong, they've sold out. Fair play, GW. But Are there quite a few machines out there pumping out what they're talking about? Space Marines versus Orcs. Non-Blood Angel, Blood Angels versus Orcs boxes
Yeah.
ready to go, because they sold a shed load last time. So they're going to need to produce and produce and produce to get that done. And it's a good number of sprues as well in a box like that, isn't it?
Yes. Having said that, I'm on their store now. Everything's in stock. So
Cool.
anything that was out of stock, not a thing now.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect the levels of 3 years ago,
No.
because they have expanded their facilities, not as much as they want to, and they're still doing that. But there has been an expansion, and I think they are very aware of the problems they had and don't want to repeat those. So, going forwards.
And that seems to be
Cool.
working.
But
Beyond that, not sure there's much else in
well,
terms of new news.
we've got Adepticon coming up at the end of the month,
Yes.
so we're going to have a preview. We're going to have, I suspect, we're going to have 11th edition 40k there, because we know 11th is coming, because GW have all but said 11th is coming. Whereas last year, for the Heresy one, we didn't officially know that Heresy was coming, so I think that was the fundamental difference in why we got a separate announcement. So I think
do you think we'll get if we get a Heresy?
I think we'll get something. What it'll be, who knows? Like
whether or not they go for a second wave Custodes.
I could believe that.
I could see them going the jet bikes, and that would probably be about it. Maybe the Terminators, although I think they'll probably stay resin. I don't think the jet bikes will.
One of the other tanks.
Yes, that would be the obvious one.
Yeah.
They've announced both. They've shown, haven't they? They previewed the big transport one and the shooty one. I don't think they've shown the Palace. Yeah. So that's
the Bubba.
Yeah, you could have that and the jet bikes.
Maybe the Velatari, something like that. The Velatari.
They've announced those. Yeah, but they've announced it. They've shown those.
Oh, they've shown them. Oh, yes, they did, didn't they?
Yeah. That's the thing.
That's
I'm just thinking of ones that don't. But if you went another way, you do. As you could start to have. I mean, there's suggestions that you get Legion specific, like Darren.
Yeah, like I mean, they could show off the next book, because we're probably going to get. So you're going to get a 40k thing separate from 11th. You're going to get an Age of Sigmar thing, which I say, here we go. It's going to be Cities of Sigmar, or I personally riot in my own house. And then we're going to get something for Lord of the Rings / Kill / like some of the smaller games. You'd probably get something for Kill Team. And what else was there? Oh yeah, Old World. You're going to get something for Old World. Who knows what on that one? Maybe Kislev. Maybe we get a Kislev preview. Kislev.
Oh, could do. Yeah.
Show off. Something like that. Maybe that's all too many big things. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Heresy. Maybe sabers, maybe tanks, maybe some of the smaller tanks.
Oh, sabers could be a thing.
Yeah, sabers or arquiters or coming along those lines.
Yeah.
Could be jet bikes. Oh, not jet bikes. Speeders.
That would be good.
Who knows? I mean, there's loads of stuff, right? They're still plugging through.
Yeah, there's plenty of things that they can
all of that. Whatever it's going to be. Legions. It could be Legion stuff.
You're not going to get people clamoring for breaches anymore. That's the thing.
Most
of the infantry. I mean, I suppose you could do seekers and stuff. You could do some specific kits like that, but it feels like the tanks would be the obvious one as the next one.
Yeah, doesn't it? Oh, scouts would be really good. Or
yes,
recon.
I would have thought there's probably more sales in sabers and
and
javelins and things like that.
It's all important stuff, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's all going to come about as it goes. But,
go left field. Dreadnought drop pod in plastic.
Dreadnought drop pod.
I'm looking at my Legions Imperialis.
Dreadnought drop pod, Dread Claw.
Oh yeah.
Next to
Dreadnought drop pod with the shield.
Shield
thing
as an option. Yeah.
You've got it in Legions. What else have you got in Legions? Yeah, anyway. So, well, at some point, one
Thunderhawk.
assumes we're going to get the big spiders.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, there's still some talk about a really big plastic thing coming.
Yeah, I've heard suggestions and rumours, all unconfirmed, just from rumour sources, but I'm never quite sure how much they're the
No,
same
it's
sort of
all
things.
very.
Oh, they're looking at doing a Warhound. They're looking at doing this, but yeah, I'm sure they are. You know, those plastic. There are big plastic kits in the world. Hello, Gundam, but that doesn't mean that they're going to make that viable or
And the
economically viable.
timing would feel a little bit weird with that, I think.
Yeah.
Although they've just announced Apocalypse, so.
Yeah, but I think they're still they tacked it in at the back of as one part of one source book in a end of edition game. That's not a thing. They'd make that much bigger headline if that was a thing. I think we're way off that. But
well,
I could see spiders coming in. Not for this preview, but I could see those being a thing.
I mean, I don't think 11th edition 40k is going to be a massive step away from 10th edition.
No, I've heard it's compatible with the existing code.
Yeah, so what they're bringing out again, as I say, pushes forwards compatibility wise. But yeah, who knows? Anyway, that's like 28th of March or something like that. So by next episode, we'll have something new to talk about. I am sure. New Blood Bowl team sorted. Maybe, or
Kill Team Heresy at last.
Yeah, saw people started to talk about, is Mordheim coming back? Like Duncan Rose did a Mordheim video the other day, and so did someone else. Do they know something we don't? Like, no, I just think they probably know that Mordheim's on having a real resurgence for some reason. Like, and we're like, let's get a video out about Mordheim. Yeah, who knows? I think that's probably.
I think that covers all the news.
Yeah, as I say again, if you're new to us, we like to give our opinions, and sometimes those opinions are proved to be extremely flawed. But we like to have a conversation. This is the kind of stuff we enjoy, isn't it? Like, the whys, the what happens behind the scenes as well. It's definitely something we enjoy. If you didn't like this, but you don't have to. Again, I put the timestamps in so that if you want to listen to just content, then you can skip whatever parts you don't like. So, hopefully it's enjoyable for you as it is for me and how to talk about.
And let us know.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Let us know. Let us know if you hate it. It's fine. Trust me. I've probably had worse emails than the one you're thinking of. Certainly reviews.
I've said I've stopped sending those. I apologise.
Yeah, and see, he's not nice, people. Stop voting for him.
I'm just not nice to you.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Such a bully. But yeah, who knows? We'll push on. I'm going to paint some. Get up early tomorrow and paint some gold boys.
Yeah,
girls. Gold boys and girls.
Bit worried about these ones. I'm just not. They're coming out a bit sparkly for my liking.
I need to put this model here because I now, having built it all, need to try and. Have you noticed? Do you drill your barrels?
I do typically. I haven't on these because they are so small.
And
half embedded in the sword. It's like
sure. The spear is tight. It is. I don't know if it is tighter than bolt guns. It feels tighter than bolt guns, in part because the blade of the weapon is there, so you've got to have your pin vise be quite long to get onto it. So it's quite easy to kind of push at an angle.
I don't even know how you would drill the barrels of these.
Because of where they are. Maybe I've made a mistake. Maybe I just don't take the shield, guys. Maybe that's it. That's the answer.
That's the reason you don't. It's a modelling reason.
Yeah. Why not? Well, yeah, because I do it on everyone else. I don't know why. I'm not that good at getting it centrally. But yeah. What can you do? Anyway, let's leave that there. first of the books we're going to look at is the Journal Tactica Mailed Fist Legions Astartes Super Heavy Tanks. So we're familiar with the Journal Tacticas now and the format they come in. Just an overall first, this one's a bit different, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I got obviously a taste of that when they announced it, and the fact that it has that subheading, Legion Astartes Super Heavy Tanks. I mean, it gives it away. But to have a focus on a unit type is a whole new thing, rather than having a focus on a battle, which I thought was quite cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit, but I think it's a good Journal Tactica. I enjoyed it. I think it suffered a little bit more from the others for not being so coherent on here's a battle, here's what happened.
Not having something to pivot around. Okay.
Yeah, I felt that some of the content is very good, but we'll get into it. But as I said, we go to Paramar 5, the Altharan Ridge, and Tau 3 is 3 different places, and it just doesn't have that connectivity through the whole book.
What do you think? Do you feel it feels bitty as a result of that, or what's the issue there?
I think it's just lacking that theme to go through. So it feels. I tell you what, it felt more like reading Imperial Armor 1 or 2 compared to Imperial Armor 3 through 10. It was more. Here's the things we want to talk about. Tanks. Here's a place where they were used. Cool. Whereas you look at, we haven't yet recorded the other Salamanders ones, but you look at the first ones, and it's like, here's a battle, here's what happened in this whole battle. We're going to tell you a story, and these vehicles, these units, are part of that story. Whereas this was, here's some super heavy tanks, and here's how they were used.
I think I didn't get that impression in the same way, because the reason for that, though, I think, is because I kind of love the lore sections on the specific patterns of tank.
Oh, they've done very well. It's a very good book.
I went straight to those, and so didn't feel like I was missing a linked narrative. I get what you're saying completely, but because I was quite taken with those, and it took me back to the sort of perhaps longer sections that you used to get in. I'm thinking of sort of second edition 40k codexes. You used to get quite long sections because there weren't that many units by comparison to what you see now. So you got like a 2-page or a 1-page spread on a single thing, like a Predator tank, and it went quite deep. Here you get a 2-page. Is it 2-page? Yeah, 2-page spread on each of the super heavy tanks and on the Whirlwind. I kind of loved that, and so and then you got. I'm a big fan of a kind of company organization, stuff like that. I didn't particularly miss hinging it around a single battle personally, but I see what you're saying. I can see how that would be more cohesive and make it less like an article, perhaps.
Yeah, I think they did very well with it. I think as we go through parts of it, there's some really good stuff in here. But as I say, just for me, just didn't sit quite as neatly within that format. So, yes, they give us like the background of super heavy vehicles, really, the history of them, starting all the way back with what is STC technology. And I thought this was really good, actually, because we've got people who are new to Heresy, people who are new to 40k and Heresy as well, jumping into Heresy. This is stuff that's known by veteran gamers. I'd be interested to see even some like mid-term gamers how much they know about what STCs are and how they work. So I think it was really good to put that in it, and it's written well.
Yeah, I think you could quite commonly get just a gist as well. I mean, I think people who've been in it for a long time, you might have the gist of what an STC is and what the technology is and what it represents. You wouldn't necessarily know where to go and get a more detailed thing. So to have something that explains that with a bit of room to breathe, I think it's pretty cool.
And it does it in a way like to clarify that it's not just here's a Rhino STC and it goes out. It's like, or they were utilised and taken off. It's like actually no, having these around meant that you could use them for resupply. You could use them just for parts. You could use them to expand on, your the progression of the Great Crusade and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed reading that bit. There's some cool plates, color plates in here. You can't expect that from GW, don't you?
Yes, although that you can get a mixture of certain things.
Sure.
You can when it comes to color plates, you can sometimes get the more how would you put it, sort of cell shaded,
Yes.
cartoony, some might call them style. Then you get some that are more the rendered, almost photo real, which I'm looking at the Ultramarine example here, but even the company, the Iron Warriors company example here is in that kind of rendered style, which I personally prefer. So I think it's more evocative of it rather than informative, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, color plates, good to see, and timelines. We love a timeline to have
Yeah. And what that also does, part of that Super Heavy Tank Company data sheet, as it were, combined with the second part of that first section, explains why Space Marines got super heavy tanks. They found themselves fighting more and more by themselves rather than with Imperial Army support, and therefore they needed this development of, I can't remember who the tech priest was now.
Oh yeah, I thought it was cool to have him introduced. Yeah, Argonos, Argonos
Yes.
Crown,
Yeah,
Argonos,
that's
I
it.
guess.
Who's is making a name, like there's a name that can be used going forwards to play around and try and develop these weapons that would give them a little bit of what the Imperial Army were doing for them. On top of that, we see how they then fit into the structure of the Space Marines as well. Like super cool stuff. Like well done. It doesn't feel like any of this is forced. It's
It feels like an expansion, doesn't it? Feels like an expansion of something and of something that you're aware of, but it added depth to things, which I thought was great.
I think so. The format's changed. We don't get black books anymore. They don't have the resources to spend a year and a half on a book to do that, and staff have changed and everything. But I really feel that the Journal Tacticas have been really well written.
I agree.
There are, of course, there are varying bits. Some's better than others, but in general, I've really enjoyed reading them. They felt fairly fresh, detailed, but also interesting, and make you want to read more as well.
I feel like they're tonally right. They've got the tone spot on, and as you say, it doesn't feel too forced. Like, well, we've got to tie. This is probably the one that runs the highest risk because they've chosen a particular, exactly the point you're making, really, that they've chosen a particular way of presenting this, and rather than present that in the way that we've seen with others, where here's a larger narrative, and oh, by the way, these featured there. Here they've put the units front and center, so this really runs the risk of what sort of befells perhaps some Black Library publications in the probably 10 years ago or so now, a period where it felt very forced that they were tying in with particular releases, the specific models or ranges. I don't get that impression, even though that's fundamentally what's happening with this, but I don't get that impression, really.
And I think from what little I know of the process, I think the different writers work on different parts. Like, oh yeah, so-and-so will write that part. And I'm sure there's feedback and everything within that. But I almost can't tell like who's writing which parts either. It feels cohesive. It feels like it flows through the whole thing in a really good manner, to the point where, again, we're talking about like, there's all that about Crown and developing these things and how they fit in the structure and how they were designed. But within that, there's also hints that there's secrets. Crown's got his own secrets in there. There's Mechanicum priests involved doing their own thing. There's internal politicking even within that.
I thought the hints at that were great. I thought that,
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that even during Unity, even
Yes.
during the Crusade era, there were rivalries that got nasty, as it's implied there. Well, out and out says, mysterious deaths, suspicious
Yeah. During
deaths
the
of
Great
several members.
Crusade, like this
Yeah,
is
exactly. And you're like,
well
okay,
before
that's pretty cool, but it's
we
testing it's much crunchier than it might have
mm,
otherwise been.
we know the priests of Mars like have that rivalry, but it's it's like actually it's pretty serious at times,
Mm.
and that's kind of echoed a little bit in the Custodes book as well for the little bit of that.
Mm.
So we get a nice couple of pages on the Fellblade. Again, overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to say it a lot, I suppose,
I
but
think
it
it's
gives it,
quite hard. If you think of that as a challenge, if you were set that as a
yeah,
challenge, write a 2-page description of each of these tanks, which are fundamentally very similar in terms of the hull. Obviously, the weapon system is different, but I thought it was quite a. I was quite impressed that they managed to have that level of differentiation between the three.
yes. So we've got the Fellblade, the Glaive, and the Falchion. They're able to talk about why they're designed the way they are in a way that isn't really kind of technical manual. Fellblade was infantry support, stable, blah blah, built to be this way. The Glaive was designed to be utilised when heavily outnumbered, and had to work lots of reasoned background changes to why it had to, how it had to work on its chassis, and like it wasn't really used pre-heresy because it wasn't required, and all that, even to the point where you don't have you don't poke your top, your head out the top because you will get
Yeah.
fried from it. And then the Falchion, details like how, we want a mini shadow sword, and we tried to do this, didn't work, so we changed that, swapped it around. It's got a different profile because of that. Like, it makes them feel like, they didn't just design the tank to look cool. Like there were reasons for the tanks to end up the way they were, for the role they're part of, and over all three of them, really, particularly the Fellblade, I felt it gave you a reason to include one in your army narratively.
Yeah.
You kind of
Yeah.
read that and you thought, oh yeah, cool, I can come up with an idea of an army with a Fellblade in it. Which, is, I say, pretty well done, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think it is difficult to do that, to say, oh, well, here's the same chassis again with a different gun on the top. To turn that into a kind of compelling piece of text, but one that goes further to explain it. I think, yeah, whoever's written the lore in this has done a hell of a job, and I think that's been something that's been consistently true with the Journal
Yes.
Tacticus, proving the
Yeah.
format is pretty cool.
And it carries on into the Whirlwind as well, like, talking about the need for mobile support to be able to keep up with the speed of Space Marines. But on top of that, like was it the Iron Warriors and the Alpha Legion, because you have to reload it from the outside. Like some legions use servitors, the Iron Warriors and the Alpha Legion would give punishment duty, and you would have to get out and load it like in the middle of battle. Like, it's just, it's so evocative, really.
A bit like that with some of the points on, I think it's the Falchion, where they're like, certain legions would rotate out the crews because the prolonged exposure to the firing of these weapons meant the radiation was a problem. But then there were other legions that didn't care so much, like the Iron Warriors and the Iron Hands. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
I thought those little touches are quite entertaining.
Yeah, they're really cool. So that's it. We get 4 tanks. Cool. That's like the main thrust of the book. We then get 3 stories. Paramar 5. Was it the Altharian, Alrathan Ridge, and Tarrel 3. Paramar 5 being, the classic Black Book 5, 4, 5. This story introducing the Decurions that can ride in these super heavies, but highlights the liabilities of having these big tanks and how infantry are a threat to them. Cool story. Fine. Goes on to be used in the scenario. I felt the other two. I think this is the weakest part of the book. The other two, they were fine, but I particularly the Purging of Tau 3. I was like, okay, cool story of, because I think maybe here is where I feel that not having one narrative through the book.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's a story about Tau 3 is the whirlwinds, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Alrathian Ridge is a stranded Fellblade, trying to keep off. Cool, you're thinking of Fury or whatever film it is, and it's fine and it's decent, but it's a story that doesn't seem to, it doesn't resonate through the rest of the heresy. It doesn't feed in quite as well. And they're fine. But it's not necessarily the story's fault. It's the wrapping it's in.
Yeah, tricky. Yeah, because you sort of wonder. Obviously, tanks are such a significant part of certain things, like Talon being an obvious one. But it's kind of we've got some. I guess they've done Talon extensively in Legions, but they'll probably touch on that again. They're probably saving that for something else. Could you have run a theme around that? Maybe you do it around
they could have. I mean,
there's lots of things, I suppose.
Vengeful Spirit. What was the planet they were on?
Molech.
Molech. I suppose they're not. Yeah, I mean, you just pick a planet and have a central theme around.
I mean,
they
mention Talon in the timeline. It's one of the first ones there. The Sapphire withdrawals things. So they bring up a couple of these things, don't they?
Yeah, this I quite like. So 6 very small. A small timeline, 6 small stories. Which ones did I like? Oh, the is it the Lanishar Purgation, the World Eaters Legion.
Oh yeah.
Descending upon the Ultramarines recruitment world of Lanishar, only to find out there's a newly formed super heavy armor company on live firing exercises, and they lose 1 Ultramarine vehicle. I think that's brilliant. It's like it's going to happen somewhere.
Yeah.
That was cool.
You got unlucky. Yeah, you just caught out. You got the short straw. So sorry.
There was a couple of really nice bits in there as well, which again, they're very short paragraphs, really, sections. So to be able to do something in there which is a bit different is pretty cool. And then we get our legendary mission, the Charge of the Calicorus, which is, I say, from the Paramar book. It's interesting. So this is a lengthways attacker defender scenario. Defenders defending 3 objectives. Attacker is trying to claim sectors. And this is very much the theme of the missions in this book. Is the attackers are trying to claim sectors and get overrun. As a special rule in some of those, if you're in certain sectors, you get the overrun score for having done so. What I liked about this mission particularly, as a narrative legendary mission, is because I'm trying to remember, was it the attackers is Iron Warriors?
That's right. Yeah, defenders is
allies.
Legion. It's
Alpha Legion.
Alpha Legion allies, though, isn't it?
Alpha Legion, yeah, primarily Mechanicum with Alpha Legion.
That's right.
Allies.
I couldn't remember if it was Mechanicum or Solar, but yeah, Mechanicum with Alpha Legion allies. That's right.
But you have so the Iron Warriors, in theory, are trying to push up onto the defenders' deployment zone. Defenders are picking up points from their objectives the whole time. But when you get to battle turn 4, if the attackers have fewer victory points than the defender, which they probably will have, just looking at how the game plays out, the battle setup, then the attacker may declare a tactical withdrawal, and if you choose to do so, then all your victory points for the overrun secondary objective can be scored from your own deployment zone rather than the enemy's deployment zone. So, like, if you've really struggled, you can be like, yeah, nope, we're going to come back, we're going to fight another day. Which, competitively, I don't know how well that works, but narratively works really well.
Particularly if you linked that in
Yeah,
to
exactly,
a
as a
larger
campaign,
where keeping things alive makes sense.
yeah.
Has greater value. I agree with that.
Or even just, I say, even if you just got a general campaign where you are telling a narrative story, like, if you're struggling to break through, you retreat and come back again because they had super heavy tanks to do it with.
Yeah. Got the
Which is,
survivability. You withdraw, try again. Withdraw, try again. Yeah, wear them down. I agree. I thought it was quite a cool mission. I haven't been. I mean, particularly for super heavy tanks or tanks in general. Using the even sort of suggestion of they have one of those tank companies for the Iron Warriors mentioned earlier on. You sort of think, yeah, I'm on board with that. And a big bugbear I have really of this particular scale of Heresy in general, Age of Darkness scale. I think tank games can look too crowded. I hate the look of these games where you have these sort of parking lots of and all the tanks bunched up together, even though it sort of makes sense. Whereas playing a board that way, I feel like I would hope it would encourage it to open up and look more like contemporary tank fights.
Yeah, well, the good thing about that mission and then the Leviathan missions going forwards is the overrun rule, which is basically saying you've got to move into a certain area with your tanks. So part of the problem with tanks in Heresy and old school 40k particularly is most of the time if you had good shooting there is no point moving forwards and exposing your side armor, like when you can just sit back and shoot. So yeah, overrun. If a player controls any units that have any models within their opponent's deployment zone at the end of the battle, the player scores victory points equal to the blah blah blah. If any of these models has a super heavy type, double the value of X. So to an overrun 4 becomes overrun 8. It's pretty
Huge.
decent.
Yeah.
So on top of that mission, we then get these Leviathan missions, which they also say, do it with more than 2 players. There's great scope here to have bigger battles because if you are going to have super heavies on the table, the points add up. As you said, we get some detachments. So attacker detachment, a Leviathan armored fist, apex detachment, 3 Lord of War choices. Lord of War units selected as part of this detachment do not count towards the 25% of total points limit restriction. So yeah, this is allowing you to go whole hog to tell a story, to play a mission that's a bit different, which is pretty cool.
And do it in such a way, of course, that everyone's aware of, so everyone knows what they're getting into, so you're geared up accordingly. Not, oh, great, there's a game here. This has just broken the game because I've brought a rounded army and facing something that I can't possibly damage. Realistically damage. Makes perfect sense, and hence the corresponding defendant detachment.
Yeah, which is 3 support as an apex detachment, which is
one of which is prime as well.
One of which is prime, absolutely. So that's cool. So you're already changing the games you're playing. Talking about terrain, blah blah blah, all the usual stuff. So yeah, Leviathan missions utilize sectors controlling sectors, which is based on armored dominance value, calculated by totaling the remaining hull points of each vehicle model that player controls that is wholly within that sector. So the amount of hull points left on your vehicles versus the amount of hull points left on their vehicles. Nice and simple, bit different, which is cool. But then the defenders generally are have objective markers that they're trying to score points off as well.
Yeah.
Nice and simple, but creating a what do you call them? What is it when they don't do the same point scoring. You haven't got the same objective.
Asymmetric.
Asymmetric, that's the word.
Asymmetric victory condition.
Asymmetric victory conditions. Yeah, cool. So what have we got? Clash of Behemoths is again lengthways attack. What I quite like about some of these is slightly different deployment maps as well. So lengthways, one attack, the attacker's deployment zone is 18 inches on the flanks up to a 27-inch on the front angled deployment map.
Yeah.
Whilst the defender's deployment zone is the 27 inches on the other side. So quite a big deployment zones. But again, asymmetric, which is cool. What's break their strength? That's killing all the tanks, isn't it? End of the battle player, no more vehicles. Yeah, so defenders get break their strength as a victory condition. So nice and simple mission. 4 objectives for the defenders. Attacker wants to get into the other half of the table, so they've got to keep moving, which also creates a dynamic game as well, and also allows, not necessarily with the super heavies as much, but for other vehicles you might be able to get around the flanks and stuff like that.
I'll be really interested to see how these missions play out, and how I'm really looking forward to hearing people having actually played these and what the experience is.
It would be cool.
Like, because I think it could be quite cool. The encouragement to move vehicles, as you say, and be strategic in that movement, and then you start getting into tank hunters being relevant, and how they play. Are they maneuverable? Whatever form that is, I think that could be quite cool.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if, bearing in mind the attacker's going to be bringing super heavies and tanks, how the defender, would it be easy for a defender to be able to take the anti-tank stuff? Do you have to kind of measure what you're doing with that? Which, but these missions, they don't seem like real, I mean, we've said it. I think although this game is written as a match play game, and they more and more that way, I still think it's best played as a kind of casual narrative, relaxed kind of approach. I won't take this because it's, it will be silly. Rolling bastions, dawn of war deployment, but your sectors are quarters of the table, and there's a objective within each quarter, so the defenders are moving just as much as the attackers potentially, which is cool.
Active defense, which is quite nice, rather than just how much of a fortress can I build.
Yeah. Also, the objectives are worth more depending on if you control the sector. So 3 if you control the sector, 2 if you don't, if it's drawn, and 1 if the opponent does. So that's pretty cool. And then break the lines is a modified dawn of war with the attackers having a triangle that's 18 inches up in the center going down to the edge. Now that could be a problem.
That's tight. I think that's tight.
You could end up needing reserves on this one, because if you put some terrain in there, it's going to be quite tricky.
Terrain is going to be so key on these deployment maps. I
just think it is for Heresy anyway. I saw someone else talking about trying to come up with breakable terrain, because they played a game and they kind of realised they were doing something wrong. They were like, would it be cool? And I'm like, if you've changed the way terrain works and the way you play Heresy, if you've moved away from rulebook, then I think you have to be even more kind of wary of what you're doing. I mean, certainly at the club, I won't use the 40k terrain because L-shaped buildings aren't deep enough for medium terrain. I personally think medium terrain works fine if you've got the right medium terrain. If it is, 5 inches deep, you don't want 24 inches of medium terrain, like 24 by 12, because then people can get lost in there and your shenanigans do come up. But if you've got solid enough blocks that you can utilize it, then I think it's fine. And maybe that's just the way I approach the game as well. Like, let's make it fun. But yeah, I don't know.
That's going to be key, I think, and then it'll be very because you've got such if you're utilizing the super heavy. And it's going to, I mean, there's going to be people with collections that are going to be able to do that and take, multiple super heavies. And with the access to the plastic one, I've started to see quite a few actually people who have put them together and painted them, and in some cases more than one. So if you're grouping things together and potentially having multiple super heavies, yeah, that is going to provide
Oh yeah.
an interesting terrain. But then you get the cool thing of the vehicles are quite limited, but infantry isn't. And is infantry going to
Yes.
be able to swarm it and get around it? You get some really interesting maps there that you're going to be able to set up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it makes the game interesting, doesn't it? And then they've got some more battlefield assets, which I think is a really cool idea, actually. And
Yeah.
be tempted to like bring these into more games I play. Obviously, these are designed more towards vehicles. So we got tank traps in there, shroud canisters, shroud marker
This is a minor thing, but I really like that they've included pictures of ones
yeah,
that they've made
examples.
examples.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
really
quite
good
cool.
idea.
It makes me it's quite nostalgic because to me it looks like I seem to remember things like this popping up in things like 3rd and 4th edition 40k rule books and things.
City Fight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, City Fight, and particularly those the auto repair servitor and the wayfinder device, things like
Yes.
that. You're like, that's quite cool. And then apparently, I've heard things. I think it was Rob was talking about it on Honest Wargamer and things. Some of the events he's had, they'd had quite big success. Maybe he was referencing another event. Either way, they did reference it where people were encouraged to bring a particular type of objective.
Right.
It was like a supply drop thing or a supply
Sure.
cache, and of course, people made it in the theme of their army, and it became quite a cool thing that you brought to an event. It's just got that flavour to me, where you would want to be building something kind of cool and probably in the flavour of your army. I think it's quite fun. Gives you some quite cool little variant things without thinking, I've got a whole big project to take on here.
Yeah, they've had more scratch-built terrain like shown off in White Dwarf recently as well.
Right.
I don't know if this is like come from specialists. Like there seems to be a bit of a kind of people are going to need things like let's make them. Let's let's go for it. But it feels slightly old school. In fact, I was watching Cult of Paint and Henry was talking about the design of the new Custodes and how it feels very Visions of Heresy. And he was saying, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a little bit of inside information, that it feels like particularly Heresy has definitely kind of settled into a design era from 15 to 20 years ago, maybe led by Andy Hoare, because his armies are all very like that as well. Like whether obviously we don't know exactly what goes on there, but Andy's in charge. It does feel like the lore goes back there. I agree with that, Henry, on the designs seem to be back there a lot as well. And this feels quite back 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and taking the best bits of it, obviously, not the worst bits. So, yeah, it's cool to see another 5, 6 Battlefield assets. As you said, like the Servitor Clade looks really cool. Set them one up and give auto repair to your vehicles, or the Wayfinder device. Give them move through cover to specifically send it out in front, and it maps the area. Absolutely brilliant idea. Like really simple, and some cool examples. And then that leaves us with just a couple of new units.
Yeah.
The Legion's Decurion Magna. Upgrade for a Fellblade or a Falchion at 60 points to allow your super heavy subtype vehicle to be able to overwatch and return fire against any unit.
I thought that was huge. It's expensive because it should be. Like plus 60 points.
Auto repair 4+.
Yeah, good point actually.
Yeah, like, oh no, they fired some las cannons at me, and I've got to okay, let's fire back at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes
Return
sense.
fire. It's interesting that they've left the glaive off of that, or indeed chosen the
Well,
falchion over the glaive.
no one puts their head out the top of a glaive,
Yeah, true.
so it's not a command vehicle in that respect, is it?
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's the reason.
I think it's a cool upgrade. I think it's one
Yeah.
it's really tempting to do, and then makes a command version
Mm.
really significant.
If you're investing in a super heavy, like there are going to be certain times where, as you say, like you just can't respond to anything.
Mm.
What can they respond to? Paragons, super heavies, knights, and titans. Like, and it might be that nothing, shoots at you like that, as you feel a bit like, okay, cool. Whereas, yeah, you can spend that extra 60 points on that. And your Lehman Russ battle tank decides to take a few pot shots or whatever, and you're like, no, I will kill you.
Funny you should mention the Lehman Russ. I got the impression from reading through this, and particularly with dropping in that commander, it has the real sense that the super heavies could have this real presence, this real threat on the board, and you think, oh no. And I was reminded of someone reflecting on what it was like in second edition when things like the Lehman Russ were introduced. Or it might even have been a Road Trader where it was there and it was introduced in later. I get where when it came in, but the more skirmish focus, arguably, at that time, and I think that would be true
Yeah.
second edition.
Yeah.
When those sorts of vehicles turned up, and Lehman Russ in particular, it was kind of, oh my
Whoa.
god, how are we going to deal with this? When you're facing it on there, it was a really
Land
formidable.
Raiders.
Yeah, it was a really formidable thing. Whereas Armor 14 is still Armor 14, but the real sense of this thing rumbling in, it gives you that vibe of like, oh, a Tiger tank has turned up in a World War II movie.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in trouble now. The whole company is going to have to turn their attention onto this, and we're probably going to suffer. I get that impression that super heavies are sort of giving that vibe again. It's a scaling up, you could say. It's not a standard vehicle giving that impression. It's a super heavy giving that impression. But I kind of like that. I kind of like the
Yeah.
idea of these things being formidable, being an end of level boss kind of feel to them. I think that's quite cool.
It should be. It should be
Yeah.
intimidating to have a glaive on the table. Whether it is or not in games, different story. But you say it should be.
And then the whirlwind.
Cool. And then a whirlwind missile tank.
Cheeky little whirlwind, which I have a disproportionate or perhaps irrational like for when they announced it. I was like, I think that's a cool little tank, and still feels weird that the whirlwind is a new unit in that respect. It feels like it's always been there, and yet I got this message from my friend Dan who was saying, "Oh, what's the lore on even the Scorpius?" I think it was because he hadn't been through the Black Book era and things, and he was kind of how is the Scorpius different to a regular whirlwind? Don't know. Hold on, what? And he thought, yeah, actually, the whirlwind we sort of knew of first because of where it came from, and the Scorpius came about as a variant, but now it's kind of come full circle again, and here we are with the one of many multiple launch rocket systems.
Yeah, they can move 10 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You're choosing between which missiles. You're choosing between
basically one
6.
causes stun, one causes panic.
Yeah, strength 6 causing stun, both 5-inch at AP4, or strength 5, AP5 doing panic 1 on a 5-inch template. Cool, useful.
Yeah. And at 100 points, pretty cheap.
Not expensive. Extra 10 points if you want the Pyrex missiles, but yeah, that's not a lot, is it? Yeah, cool, and it's a great model as well.
It's one of those tanks you could sort of imagine it going in the support unit type, but it's in the tank unit type, and I thought that was quite cool because I think that gives you the option I think it's relatively straightforward to bring multiples if you wanted, and certain legions are going to kind of like that, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's it should be a tank because it's not like Scorpius digs in and fires, whereas that motors on forwards. Cool. Yes, that's the male fist. As I say, I think overall I really like the book. Felt a bit weird just not having that cohesive storyline all the way through. That's my minor.
Yeah, I get that. I see where you're coming from. I didn't personally miss it, but I get where you're coming from.
Indeed. Okie dokie. Okay, the other book we have coming out is Liber Custodes, The Forces of the Emperor.
Biggie. It's a biggie.
It's a biggie. So as with all the Libers, the background is tight, I suppose. That's my one thing with the Libers is like, oh, there's not a lot of story, but they're handling that with the general tacticas, I suppose. A little part of me is a little bit sad though, but it's cool.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was a bit worried when I flicked over it initially. I was like, oh, there's none.
Nothing here.
There's no law. That's not cool. So then when I did find that there was some, I was quite happy. But like you say, compared to some others, you're like, oh, there would be a lot more. But yeah.
Again, it's pretty good. So we address the elephant in the room. They don't actually talk about taking women, but a number of the color plates have she written on them.
Yes, I noticed that. The first one in there, I think it was, had a she, and I thought that's going to cause some people to react. I can imagine.
One dreadnought and one thing. It is what it is. Like custodians are men and women.
That's a thing. Yeah. Okay.
As we'll go in there, they're taken that they start a process at late infancy, and the background also suggests that things might have changed over time with the way they do things as well. Like the approach might have changed. So, but they don't necessarily, kind of directly note that at all.
They don't make it a big deal, do they? They don't address it just a bit like, unlike, I think it was either in the reveal or there was an article about it. It's not addressed here. It's not addressed one way or the other. No, it's just no. Exactly.
This is the background. It has women in it. Cool. I say women like as much as the men are men because they are
other.
Much.
Yeah, they are other. But these can come from either base stock, if you like. Whereas you can't do that with the Marines.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I like, again, they've taken something we know, right? And over 8 pages maybe, they've added to what we already know, what essentially was just going to be cool. Let's read about everything I've read about before. And they've gone deeper, clarified things, like not altered things, but expanded on things and shone a light in places they haven't before. These are the forces of the. What I like is that right at the opening, there's no holding back. Like these books aren't. It's not like the Black Books, which were written by a person. These are like a history of. But they don't say it's all hunky dory and this was a brilliant idea and these guys are great. It's like pretty grim.
Yeah.
It's like warts and all. Needs must, as it were. Not even needs must. It's just like I wanted these. I will take, I say late infants, and I will do all kinds of things to them to make them non-human.
To make them the best possible thing they can be, which may well and probably does include biomancy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like okay, right.
And and the custodians and the Sisters of Silence and the assessment are just part of the Dynastia Imperator, which
Is that new?
Yeah, I don't think I've heard it
I've
before.
never come
So
across that term. It's another name for imperial household,
yes,
which I think is
I
cool. I
think
think
they've done that a few times in here. They've
right,
added depth to
exactly. Mm.
expanded upon, added depth to, like, this is Imperial Household. This is what we're dealing with now, and then there's all these subdivisions within there. Even as we get on to the breaking of the different Templi that are in there. But we go, it kind of goes through a number of them, like elucidators of the sigillite and all that. But
I think it's interesting because it is relatively short, and we're comparing it here to books that had far greater scope than these can have. So it feels light by comparison. But what I think is fascinating is I feel like this is an addition to, not
yes,
a light version of. It would have been very easy for them to simply take, well, easy. It would have been an approach would be to take the stuff that had been before, and 40k codexes are classic for this, where they would take something that maybe originated back in second edition and would just either provide cut down versions or heavily edited versions so that it would fit a much reduced page count, whatever, and give you the bare bones. This could have done that. It doesn't. It actually provides something that I think supplements and, as you say, goes deeper than that and provides additional information. I've read this twice, and I've read it from cover to cover because I really enjoyed the background that was presented in books before, the black books. I felt that this supplemented it, not replaced it.
yeah.
It added to it considerably, actually, and provided there's way more structure and things in here, which I thought was really interesting.
And for those who haven't read the black books or haven't found a way to read the black books, we're getting the Legion background coming out, every week
Yeah.
at the moment, and hopefully we'll get the Custodes stuff with it as well, and the Sisters of Silence. And it's a very different remit what the black books were. They had, however many pages dealing with usually two legions, and some other bits and pieces to really flesh out stories. Say this is a tight kind of constraint of number of words and things like that. I feel like they've done an awful lot with it. You don't get the full-on detailed, 5 days slobber knocker, like, of Vrax or or wherever you are, and Paramar, as we talked about. But you're getting a lot of information in here, which is really cool. And as we say, the tacticas are where we're probably going to get more of the details of the fighting. This is to give you a taste of your army and what you want to play. So yeah, more about that kind of the structure of the different institutions. The Divisio Assassinorum, the Templi Novitas, and road traders, all enlisted, knowingly or otherwise, by the Emperor's behest, and Malcador doing his things in there, and some of them reporting to the Council Tower, some of them maybe not so much. It's all part of the fun. But we then get the Bellicosa Potentis Imperator, which gives us the main kind of structures. And again, like, for a one page, this is great.
Yeah.
You've got
this is evocative to me of some of the things you'd seen, the things that were really potent in older lore books and source books and things like. I always think of, I think it was the third edition Eldar Codex had a glyph, like a tablet represented at the end that showed the different Eldar, had representations of the different parts of Eldar society in one image. That conveyed a sense of sort of mystery and complexity and little tidbits. It was really evocative, and I feel like these do something similar, admittedly in a much more verbal, much more written sense, a much more text-based version of that. But fascinating that they've done that. And what were I've got clear things. I think I texted you at the time when I was reading it. A clear thing that stood out to me. Was there something that stood out to you?
What of the setup?
No, of specific bits that were sort of mentioned here. I mean, the ones that just
Well,
stood out to
just
me were the Auto Sinister ones. But
yeah, well, yeah. I'm like this page on the Imperiata. Yeah, like all of it really. So we'll go through it because it won't take long. The Provendors Imperatoris, like, which talks about basically the fighting forces available that are not custodes and whatever. It's tech enclaves, artificial orders of both Martian descent and other distinct origins, made to produce war items as well as having their own military in there. Liber Custodes, that's part of it. Cool, we'll talk more about that. The Ordo Sinister, really cool.
yeah, I thought the
Like,
Provenders, particularly as it was almost like the first one you read. They are essentially the weaponsmiths
yes,
of the imperial household, who are going to be dealing with loads of technologies and weapon systems and things, and just generally stuff that no one else can have.
yes.
Yeah, like that's super cool. As you say, Custodes is in there. Ordo Sinister. I mean, the Talons of the Emperor are covered. Although I thought it was interesting that that's almost broken out as a subgroup.
Well,
Um,
these are all the talons of the Emperor, right?
yeah, I agree.
Because that the whole thing is the talons of the Emperor now.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Emperor sits at the top of this thing, the Master of Mankind, Imperator, Imperatoris, Terra Reginum, and these are his hands. As you say, the Ordo Sinister is part of that. What I really like is Ordo Sinister commanded several notable auxiliary forces, including
Yeah,
Secretari and Questoris Sinister.
that was the ones that stood out to me. That
So
jumped
cool.
out, and even that it was even mentioned, and I don't think it's been written in a source book before. In addition to an indeterminate number of predominantly
Yeah, Warlord
Warlord
grade.
grade
Yeah.
God War engines, as
Oh,
in
yeah,
there's
it
a
has
notion here.
been
Oh, it
mentioned
has. It's
before
mentioned
that.
in a Black
Yeah,
Library book, certainly, but I don't think
yeah,
it's been put in a
no.
book. But I could be wrong. But then to just specifically call out Secutari Sinister and Questoris
If
Sinister.
only they did new 80s stuff anymore.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Yeah, absolutely super cool, super like awesome. Like, even if you don't use the rules for Psi Titans, even if you just have a Psi Titan and use it as a Warlord Titan, but you want to play an army with that, you can
Hmm.
convert up your Secretari and Questoris to be Ordo Sinister.
Yeah.
It'll be super cool. We got the Order Elucidatium, which is the uh, just anything that is the Sigillite has his hands on.
Anything sinister that Malkador might,
Yes,
any agent of Malkador that he might have.
clandestine
Yeah.
paramilitary military assets. Yeah, just people out and about, and several larger divisions outfitted to Solar Auxilium. Yeah, Solar Auxiliary in there. Yeah, they're off doing their thing, and then of course the Knights as well, which is so cool. So that's 5, and then the Talons in and of themselves. Because although these three are the Talons, like the whole thing, I personally feel like the whole thing is like it's the Emperor's hands, isn't it? It's
It's
the Emperor's.
interesting. It's interesting that he does this sort of shifts the idea that Dynastia Imperator, the imperial household, covers kind of everything here, being an account of the known military forces within or in direct fealty to Dynastia
Yeah,
Imperator, and then within that, within or alongside within that, the talons of the Emperor is sort of redefined here as being those forces beyond the remit of the imperial household, which nevertheless served at the Emperor's direct command. And that covers
sure.
Assassinorum, Anathema, and Templar, which I think actually clarifies it quite helpfully, because Assassinorum were kind of, the Clades were doing their own thing. They were sort of independent. Similarly, the Anathema Psychana in some way were that. The Sisters of Silence were the kind of their own thing, allied to, not sort of. You could draw a certain parallel with the Mechanicum there. That he had to kind of go
Yeah,
to them and persuade them, but arguably they kind of threw their lot in a bit more closely directly with him because of the nature of what they were doing, far more so
it's
than the
interesting that they
Mechanicum.
are sort of separate because Yeah, the Imperium brings them in as blanks. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
It
With
suggests that those 5 that it was there, the
yeah,
Provenders, the Sinister, Knights Errant, Liber Custodes, and the Elucidatum, are more directly linked to the Emperor of Malkador.
what it feels like is these 3. So the Assassinorium, shady as heck.
Yeah.
The Sisters. Don't really want to talk about them too much because they are creepy AF.
Yes.
And then the Templar Novitas.
Technology we probably shouldn't be dealing with, and
Exactly.
we're not gonna
So
tell you about it. Yeah.
yeah, so it feels like they're just more like, oh yeah, well, are they really part of the Imperial household? Like plausible deniability.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah.
More than anything else. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. And particularly, there's an interesting. It's interesting that there's a differentiation between the Templi Novitas and the Provenders Imperiatoris.
Yes.
Imperiatoris, because both are kind of providing technology to the imperial household, but one, because it's military technology and otherwise, somehow feels more worthy or
Well,
more okay
well,
than what the Templi
because it's
Novitas are dealing with.
legit,
Yeah,
whereas
exactly. Yeah,
the Novitas are dealing with forbidden technological stuff.
yeah.
So it's like, hold on, okay, you go and play with those toys, and as you say, if someone comes up with something and goes a bit rogue, I've never heard of you, mate.
Yeah.
I am going to put you down. So yeah, that's cool.
Templi Chronos. Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah,
super cool, isn't
exactly.
it? Yeah. But I mean,
Um,
this is it in an incredibly short bit of
there's a lot. There's
there.
so
We're only
much
on
in there.
page 2, effectively, this thing,
Yeah,
and it's packed with little things, particularly that page. But
yeah.
I think they've
But
done a
even then,
hell of a lot
go
with not much here.
yeah, going on like Forces of the Custodian Guard, yeah, taken as late infants, blah 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 blah. Won't won't really age. You know, inviolable psyche, all that stuff that we kind of know about. But then, pretty straight on from there, they're like, okay, let's break down that we have
Hmm.
sodalities, convocations, shield companies, which they come to expand on in a little bit on the Legio Command. But we get this Templi Magisterium Tertia
Hmm.
section, which again is like, it's just this boxed out bit, which is generally like interesting stuff, but not always like the fact it's not part of the main, it's kind of held separate. Almost for some of the old books, it would be an interesting aside, but this feels like the more important bit. So you've got the Templi Lictoris. This is the bodyguards, the warriors, the
Yeah,
custodians, all those that you see. This is the face of the custodians. These are, when you go to Terra, these are the people you see around.
yeah. I think it said
Um,
that, in essence, the custodian's role, as understood by the Imperium at large,
yeah.
what everyone expects. Bunch
What
of
we
golden
thought,
warriors.
what we thought of the custodians before we had an army list,
Yeah, yeah.
and we knew that they went out when we thought they just stayed on Terra for the whole of the fight, or went out only with the Emperor. Then we get the Templi Prudentia. So these are custodians given specific roles to safeguard vaults or technologies or prisons or whatever it is, something needs to be kept hidden.
Mm.
We will make sure there are some custodians over there on that planet, over there on that moon, flying these ships to collect that one item that the Emperor needs. Awesome.
I even like the fact that the way it's initially the very opening sentence that describes what they're about it always describes it in an ephemeral sense of this
Yes.
idea. They protect the security of the Emperor's manifold and inscrutable plans. I love that. I like the idea of them being of protecting a plan. Now that might be the protecting of a physical secret location, as you say, or otherwise.
Mm.
But equally, it could be just making sure that it remains clandestine.
Yes.
Make
Yes.
sure
Forbidden
it's not
technology.
it's information control. I love
Yeah.
that.
It's
The
all
idea
of
that
that.
these exactly the idea that the custodians are way more than just super soldiers.
And
This
then at the end of it, you get Fleets dispatched from Sol endeavoured to withhold such artifacts from the traitor's grasp, and at the fateful Siege of Terror, the Templar Prudentia is believed to have employed several nightmarish weapons once sequestered within their care against the War Master's armies. So not only are they protecting the plans, but they might also have the kind of ability to make decisions about when they use some pretty horrendous stuff, which is. And then we get the Magisterium, the Templar Magisterium. Tertia is that's not the right word.
Yeah, no, it's the
group. Templar Veritas.
Final division, Veritas, yeah.
Which are the executioners. So they were the ones who enacted the cull of the Thunder Warriors at Mount Ararat. They were there at the final days of the second Rangdan campaign.
Anytime the Rangdan comes in, you're like, oh, that's cool. That's juicy.
Yeah. And then during and following the heresy, the most bellicose legions custodes, and where conquests were unable to scour all trace of the foe from existence, they were instead conducted with symbolic precision, inflicting pinpoint destruction upon worlds such as Chemos and Arachnus as harrowing displays of the Emperor's judgment.
Arachnus is a very interesting one in that, yeah.
Yeah, so what this does, brilliant stuff. Like, not only have we added... just this one section added so much depth to the custodians as a force. Like, they're not just the bodyguards. They're not just warriors sent out to, help Russ bring in Magnus. They are a full. They've got depth of character as a force within themselves. But what we had, as I said, was the Tempi Lictoris is what we knew of the custodians 15 years ago. They protect the Emperor. That's what they do. What the other two Templi do is allow you narratively to have custodians out in the fight. And I know friend of the show, Darren Pendrag, who's on Age of Darkness podcast, he is a firm believer. Well, he's not a firm believer. He dislikes having custodies armies on the table.
He's not alone in that. I've heard several people say that.
Yeah, he'll play them, whatever. He just would prefer not to see them. I don't know that this would change his mind on that, but it certainly allows it.
Yes, and it also, I think, allows or encourages and might allow people who sort of double down on the idea of just having an allied having a small contingent allied in, a single squad or two. It could easily be inspired by those lines.
Big time.
Hugely. I agree. I think, and equally, this suggestion that these two, it's implied here that those three organizations or those three subgroups within the Custodes, as you say, one is the externally presented face of the Custodes. The other two we are being introduced to here. And the final points of particularly that third one, the Veritas, about them, obviously, that final point in there is enormous. And I love the fact that it could help some people sort of reconcile or justify why you might get large groups of them when you do expect them to be confined to terror in small groups. Yeah, that small point of within this era, the number of custodians active as part of the Templi Veritas defied all outside understanding of the Legio Custodes' strength, especially in light of the bloody Webway conflict, leading some to suppose that, in secret, the Templi Veritas had been in the midst of a shadowed preparation for some purge yet to come when the Horus heresy erupted.
The heresy was planned, man.
Yeah,
the heresy was planned.
Exactly. I mean,
they were all going to get the thunder.
Something was planned. I mean, just this. It's all guesswork, but adding mystery.
Because that could mean anything, right?
Right. Of course, yeah.
That could mean absolutely anything. That could be dealing with Mars. That could be dealing with aspects like specific legions. That could be, as you say, the heresy is planned. That could be dealing with who knows what.
You can scale it up and down, can't you? It could be
exactly.
We're actually going to deal. You could scale it all the way up and say that was the plan to deal with the Astartes. You could scale it back down and say it's the plan to deal with a single legion. It's the plan to deal with a single subdivision, as you say, Mars or something. That's quite big, but there's a whole bunch, and it's conjecture. It could all be complete rubbish.
Oh yeah, and that's the beauty of it, right? It's written in such a way that it can fit your narrative.
Yeah.
And you're right. Just within all of that, it just allows you a million ways to fit a narrative to your army. But not just that, it also allows you to set up a scenario. Let's have 4 or 5 custodians on a battlefield, and our army's fighting on that battlefield, and they're doing something else. Like, you can set whole scenarios up around it.
Yeah.
So cool. And as you say, like we're what, 6 pages in now?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we get the Legion command, the command again. This one's got slightly less in it than the rest, but it's nice to see how the scope of the
it's got
Legio
less,
at this time.
but it's I would need to go and compare it with I think there was something similar in the Black Book at the time.
Right.
You need to compare it with that, but it may go further, and it obviously introduces. I mean, it introduces the role of legatus as well, and indeed that the sort of the hierarchy of the various the 3 Templars sitting directly below Captain General, but above Tribune, and that is a whole new thing. So it's an expansion of something we perhaps already knew, and I think it helps give understanding of what Custodes are. I think you want to know what these structures are, while still with the caveat that it explains of sodalities and shield companies, etc., shield hosts rather than shield companies can be hugely dynamic. And can, also come apart and reassemble as needed.
Yeah. So particularly they're talking about sodalities are your fighting forces on the ground, which at any point may decide to rearrange themselves as to the wish of, and then that goes all the way up to convocations, all the way up to shield companies, all the way up to shield hosts. And when we're talking about shield hosts, like it shows there like 10 different shield hosts on this one thing, they can be different color schemes, right? So it again allows you all of that within that. But I thought combined with the text earlier, it's a really nice kind of example of how to do that. And as I say, for 10 pages of background, there's a heck of a lot there.
Absolutely really packed. I was really impressed with that, and the fact that it worked so well with what had gone before without simply replacing it, but equally could work quite well as a standalone thing. I think that's quite a difficult thing to have done. If you just set that as a brief, I think someone would have really struggled with that.
Yeah.
Whatever, they've managed to get that right. And even the color plates that run through this sort of tie in the little bit of text beneath it. I've forgotten the name of what's the name of the Custodes that wear the black armor.
Oh, can't remember.
Okay.
There's one at the back.
There is one at the back, and they had a specific name previously. I think they still do.
High Canatoy?
I think that's the general name for all the warrior. Well, I think that's his name, but they had a name. I forget. It's a standard. It's a standard. It's not a high Gothic type.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't matter. They are considered as the sort of the wardens, the jail keepers, that sort of thing. Now that it's within a larger organization, but isn't exclusive to, and there's a suggestion in the little bit of flavor text there that this particular custodian was part of a sodality that went out, was looking after a group of personnel, and then suddenly went off and because that group were out looking for things, relics or whatever, artifacts. I think they called it campaign records and artifacts. And then suddenly these guys went, right, we've got what we came for. We're going to have all of that. We'll take all of that, and we'll take him, and we're off. And she's like, that is such a cool little hook that ties into that very short, relatively short piece of background text we got over here, but then is hugely evocative of how you might include that in your army. Ideal to have a group of them now as part of a solar auxiliary force or a mechanicum force going out, particularly the new Scutari, who are supposed to be all about finding artifacts and stuff. It's just super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So, and then we get a list.
Then an army list.
So their Legio Tactica hasn't changed. They
No.
become stunned instead of routed in combat and cannot fall back or disengage from combat. Cool. They've got 5 detachments to choose from, which
All
is
of
cool.
which is new. That didn't exist,
Yeah.
I don't believe, before.
No,
So,
don't
and that
believe
makes
so.
it much easier. First of all, it's quite cool that they are all named around the different types. What are they called? The warrior groups? I forget what they're called.
Convocations.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. Of
Oh, I
which,
see what you mean. Yeah, the
yeah,
F4I, the the
yeah,
cataphractoid.
the high canatoi being the most common
Yes.
one, i.e., that composes the regular custodian guard and the custodian sentinels, i.e., your sword guys and your
Yes.
sword and shield guys. But that's the high canatoi. The fact that these are all named after those different types of custodian,
Mm,
Moritoi being the dreadnoughts,
yes.
Tyrannosaur being the Terminators, etc., etc.
What's nice is they're obviously aware that you might not have as many HQ choices, so they're giving you 2 dreadnoughts in the Apex detachment. You know, they're giving you some troops and a transport, and they're giving you the cataphractoids like some tank and transport and fast attack, whatever they're called, in there. And then we get additional prime advantages as well. So prefect. So you may be selected for a prime slot used to select a shield captain unit. The models that fill the prime slot have +1 on their base wounds characteristic and gain officer of the line 2 special rules. So I can see that being used.
Could be useful, yeah.
Absolutely. And then the Hateran Guard. So all models in the unit selected to fill a prime slot with this prime advantage, which have the Liber Custodes trait and the infantry or cavalry type, modify the value X up to 2. So your Eternal Warrior 2. Only once per army, unless the army contains any models with a golden exemplar trait, in which case a single additional selection of this prime advantage may be made for each model in the army with the trait. Cool.
That is cool. It's cool that they're still in the army. I assumed that they wouldn't be, and here they are. I didn't think that we were going to see them
In
as a
some
separate
form,
unit
yeah.
type. Yeah, but it's a really cool way of including them and giving them a little bit of a bonus over and above their counterparts, their regular, he says, counterparts. Yeah, cool that exists as a prime advantage.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, we won't go through all the. I'm going to look at what does the sodality trait. Oh, yeah, that's allows the thingy, doesn't it?
This thingy.
Yes. So hold on. I'm going to go to that. I'm going to try and find it here before I do anything else. The sodality, if I can find it. So, yeah, we're not going to go blow by blow, but Valdor basically hasn't changed from the PDF, if I can find the sodality rule, which is always good. But basically, I think the
Where is
sodality
it?
rule.
It's a good
Oh,
question.
that's really annoying. Is it at the front? Because it's quite an important one. Sodality rule. Love it when you can't find what you're looking for. Sodality. Ah, where is it?
I've read it, so it's really annoying that it's not.
Unless it's part of another unit's entry.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be likely. It's going to be a central.
No, it's a trait.
It's a central rule somewhere. Special rules. It's not.
Here we go. It's an advanced reaction. So it's I knew it was here somewhere.
That's a bit weird that it's laid. Anyway, whatever.
No,
Yep.
it's not. So, well, it is and it isn't. I'm pretty sure it's here. So yeah, we'll cover this now. So they do have an advanced reaction called the blade splits. This reaction allows the reacting unit to split into 2 new units when an enemy unit ends its move within 12 inches.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Is this the one that uses the sodality, or am I
It is,
wrong?
yeah. It's under target. Yeah, it's under target.
Yes. There we go. So has to be a unit with a sodality, ends within 12, and contain at least 6 models. And then where we go? You when you must move a number of models from the reacting unit. When making this move, the reactive player must move at least 3 models from the reacting unit a number of inches up to the base value of each model's initiative. So they are no longer in unit coherency with the rest of the reacting unit, but they are in unit coherency with each other. Once it's complete, there must still be at least 3 models from the reacting unit which did not move. Once it's units separate from the reacting unit, all purposes, including scoring of victory points. There we go. So become a new unit. So in 40k, you can just, like, as a point, you can break off like individuals. I don't know if they've changed that yet, but you can literally have just individual custodians running around being annoying. This is slightly restrictive of that, but it means you can run a big block of whatever up, smash their anvil or their hammer, and then when someone moves towards you, you can be like, cool, now I want more units. Obviously, it's an advanced reaction, you can only do it once, but it's pretty cool. Just going to check the Golden Legion, Fear 1. Yeah, I think Valdor's pretty much as he was. He's a beast.
Yeah, he continues to be pretty formidable, doesn't he?
Yeah. The Misericordia, that's an interesting one. Misericordia. So, a unit containing any models with Misericordia may select a unique aftermath option in which it makes a single attack against an enemy unit from the same combat. So, it's, one attack at strength, AP 3, precision 2+, breaching 5+, power. And its damage characteristic is equal to the number of models with the Misericordia in the unit for which this aftermath option has been.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's a single attack, but that's not bad. Like if you've got 5 Misericordias, yeah, then you're doing damage 5. So not a bad thing to have.
No, that is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Situational when it's really going to be that good, but it is. Will be good. I think the
and he's got his own sword again. His sword, sorry, his own spear. What am I talking about? Sword. He's got his own spear. No.
The Tribune, I don't think has changed particularly much. I don't think the Shield Captain's particularly changed. We probably should have done this a bit, but I think a lot of it stayed pretty much the same, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a biggie is things like the army construction, the fact that you've got the detachments now. It's things like the advanced reaction. I mean, points wise, he's about the same, I think. Yeah, they're all the same. 250, 175.
Well,
yeah, there's
Sentinel
nothing standing
Guard have gone up. One thing has changed is you're buying them in. You're buying like your Sentinel Guard and your Custodian Guard in 6s. Like they've increased the size of the units.
Oh, that's true. Minimum size is 6 now, not 3.
So, and so obviously, also the points have doubled effectively. They've got its some support units now though, which is cool. Sagittarium Guards Sodality with Adrastus bolt calivers. That's a cool unit.
Are they?
Oh no, sorry, apologies. I'm on the PDF.
I was going to say, yeah, that's not a thing. That's not a thing.
They've lost their guard sodalities, which is interesting.
That is interesting because
they've taken a unit out.
The Adrasite. So where do you get the? Well, presumably you don't get the Adrasite spear and the Pyrethite spear. Where are they?
Oh, in this book, I don't know who's got them.
I think they've gone.
The Aquilons come with the Infernus Pike. Yeah.
That makes me think that might be legended in.
Maybe. It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Because it's not in the war gear section either.
So we've lost a couple of units.
Well, we've lost a couple of weapons.
Yes.
It was still the weapon was that I'm still talking specifically about those spears.
Yes.
But those spears were part of the Custodian Guard. they were options for the Custodian Guard sodality. Yeah, we've lost the Sagittarum Guard. Wow.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We lost the Sagittarian
Wow.
Guard.
Okay, so that's a whole other thing. That is a whole unit type. Oh
So I
wow,
wonder if
that's a
that's
blow.
gone to 40k.
I wonder if that'll be legended.
Maybe.
I don't think it'll be 40k because they were never 40k.
Well, maybe not. Yeah, they were resin
Resin upgrade
upgrade
kit. They were a
kit,
resin
wasn't it?
head and gun.
So maybe that's why. So because we still got the Aquilon Terminators.
Yes. And interestingly, the photos in the image, or the image there,
Yeah,
look to be the same resin ones. And similarly, some of the color plates, some of the photographs in the back of the book have the Gear Falcon jet bikes, which appear, as much as one can tell, to be the resin ones, but who knows?
I think it would take some time to
Upgrades. Yeah,
upgrade on that. Yeah,
one step at a time. Yeah.
exactly.
That
Yeah.
said, if you asked me cold, I would have probably said those vehicles on that dreadnought were resin as well. So that's how observant I am, because those are clearly plastic.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, the jet
It takes
bikes on the back
time.
of the book. Yeah, it does.
It's all
does.
taking time, isn't it?
So I would
But
imagine, we don't know, but I would imagine we will see, because I think somewhere it makes the specific point. I think it's at the beginning of this book, actually. It says it replaces the
yes,
PDF, the Legends PDF of the same name. Or same name, that deals with this topic. I would imagine we might see a Legends PDF update or a separate Legends PDF that comes out and deals with those three things: the two spear types
maybe.
and the Sagittarum. Oh, there's no way, not after what they've done, that they would just say, "Oh, sorry guys, the
Whoa.
people who bought that, you're chucking them out." I just don't think that will happen.
What's interesting is the Venatari have stayed at 3 models. The jet bikes have gone down to 2 models for the same points, still 70 points per model.
Right.
So you can have some smaller units of those flying around.
You could have up to 10. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could have big units as well, but you could have just 2 going out to do specific jobs within, if you want to do that, which is cool. So you slightly free up some points in that respect.
That does suggest to me that there are new models coming. That
Yeah, 2 in a box.
Speculating, yeah, because previously
Yeah.
it was 3 in a box, and the unit entry was 3 base up to an additional 6 to give you a total of 9. Seems unlikely that you'd create a new unit entry that could have up to 10. When that would have been difficult to do. So that suggests we might get those in plastic in due course. But
well, the old unit entry went up to 9. So yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I see what you
What I'm
mean.
saying,
Yeah,
yeah.
with you. Sorry,
I say it came in a box of 3. I think it was a box of 1, actually.
I think it was you bought them individually.
You
But
did.
if they do a box that contains 2, having a unit start at 2
Yeah.
is preferable to having a unit that starts at 3. So yeah, I think you're probably right on that. At some point down the line, we're going to get a box of 2
Seems
of those.
likely. Seems likely.
It makes logical sense. I've got a few things wrong recently, but that one seems to be. We still got the Orion, and we've still got the Ares for what that's worth. And then we've got some Gambits. So we got Raptor Surge. The Gambit grants a model additional attacks based on the number of enemy models in the combat from which the model was selected. So it's based on your outside support bonus. The model gains a bonus to its current attack characteristics in the following step equal to the difference in outside support bonuses the players could claim up to +3. That's not bad.
Yeah.
With the right weaponry. That is pretty good. World Serpent's Bane. The Gambit limits the model to 1 attack, but sets the attack's damage characteristic to the model's remaining wounds. Whew.
Yeah. These are quite good.
That's got potential in some like non-eternal warrior like fights.
Yeah.
Like, some beefy characters. But 1 attack, I mean, depends who you're doing it with, because if you've got a Tribune or someone like that, you probably should have a decent weapon, and you probably should be able to choose something like Raptor Surge and be doing enough extra attacks to go through those anyway.
Yeah.
but situational, shall we say?
Yeah.
Heaven Strike. This gambit halves a model's attack characteristics, but replaces the critical hit 6 with the critical hit 5 on its weapons. Cool, interesting. Halve the model's attacks. Again, bit of a risk, but if you need those crits to go through, might be worth it. And then Stone Aegis. This gambit modifies a model's toughness by +1, but causes wound tests made for it to fail on a 1 or a 2. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, but any wound tests made for that model in the same strike. Wound tests. So you wounding someone else.
Okay.
The flow of attacks from the most could not forestall the lethal reprisal when the guard finally drops. That's a weird one. Hold on. Gambit may only be selected from a model with the shield trait. If the gambit is selected, then the model which was selected gains +1 modifier to its toughness characteristic for the duration of the strike step. But any wound tests made for that model in the strike step automatically fail on a 1 or a 2. So you take the wound tests.
Okay.
I don't. To be honest, I'm too
modifies a model's toughness by +1. Causes test.
Words. Too many words.
I mean, if you select a model with the shield trait, if this gambit is selected, then the model for which it was selected gains +1 modifier to its toughness, duration of the strike tip. But any wound test made for that model in the same strike tip, made for that model, automatically fail on a 1 or a 2. So it just basically means that someone who you were going to wound on a 2+, because 1s always fail. Someone you were going to fail on, you might have wounded on a 2+, you no longer do.
Bear with me. The number of wound tests that must be made for that strike group. So yeah, you're becoming tougher, but you have less chance
it's harder
of
for you
wounding.
to wound. Yeah.
Yeah.
But only
only
things you were going to wound on a 2+ anyway.
Yeah, I was just trying to confirm that it worked that way because it.
Yeah, it's a way of wording it. Another way of saying that is you can now only wound on a 3+.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and
the
I'm sure
model
it's
that's
worded like that,
benefiting from that.
Yeah, exactly.
It was making sure it wasn't +1 to wound and couldn't be wounded on 2.
The fact that it's phrased like a negative, like a counterpoint to the positive of +1 toughness. Yeah.
For depending on what weapon you've got, that might not be that relevant. So if you haven't got a fist, if you've got a sword or something like that, you might needing 3s anyway. So it's cool options. So overall, they haven't changed much, but they've got that new advanced reaction to split, and then they've got some more gambits. So roughly in a slightly better place from our quick overlook.
I think so. I think there's
lost a unit. Yeah,
lost a unit, but I would bet money that it's going to be brought back through Legends, at least initially. And maybe it will come back eventually via
and
a
I
journal.
don't think it's a unit that scares people. I think I've got a unit of them actually. But,
yes, I mean it's not something. It's something you tended to have a unit of. I can't imagine we really leaned into it. I think I've got a bunch of them, and I remember doing a lot of work to get those special weapon spears to be options on models. So that's a bit of a blow to see those go. But I would imagine, given the incredible work that they did with the Legends, and how obviously the furore around people thinking, oh, all these weapons have changed and things, and then lo and behold, pretty much everything came back by the Legends thing. I would imagine that will happen with this in this case as well. You will get the old Talons book will go away, a PDF will go away, and there'll be a new.
Do you know what?
Legends of the Talons of the Emperor or something.
Misericordia hasn't changed.
Has it not?
No, just I've not had it used or not used it.
Well, there we go.
Doesn't look like the equipment's changed a lot. So they haven't done a lot with the
There are extra things, and there's things to look out for while you were going through the gambits there. I was flicking between that and the PDF. The transport capacity of the Orion has gone up by 2 points. Oh, it can transport 26 instead of 24.
Filth now.
Exactly, yeah, that's it, broken. So there's a few bits they've sort of defined, I say, another form of the grav tank, the actual tank. The Caladius grav tank. Now, instead of just being a Caladius grav tank, there's now Caladius grav tank and Caladius
Annihilator ground tank.
Yes,
It's a
yes,
separate
that's
thing.
right.
There's little tweaks like that, and there's probably a few others that we're not pulling out because we haven't done a full line by line.
And we're not going to. Yep.
No,
But
but
it looks like
pretty much very similar.
Yeah. And it feels like they're settled until they're getting everything kind of in line across the board. But it's cool. But that's not the only army we got in this. We do have the Silent Sisterhood. Now,
Yeah.
this is what one page of background. Again, what's interesting is they're highlighting with this one that they're not just warriors; they're investigators, which is quite a cool little. They're sent out. We know they're sent out to find psychers, but this just suggests that there's more to it than that, which I like. And they're sent out on black ships and stuff, but every now and then, again, when we look back at the way they wrote the custodians bit, there are specific jobs which the sisters are sent out to do.
Mm.
So again, it's just allowing you into that kind of here's a narrative hook for your army.
Yeah, I think people are still going to be a little disappointed that I just feel like they haven't had their turn yet. I would have thought that is a set of models that is a real candidate for having an update, much like the Custodians have had this round.
But they need more than that. This is
considerably more. Considerably more. I agree with that.
This is why I don't think they've really touched them.
No, I agree.
Because
I think
they need to upgrade the base models, and then they need to provide units to make them. Because it's such a waste. Like they had such cool ideas, like jet bike units would be really cool, like the ones they had and things like that. Not necessarily the ones with the animals and whatever. I don't think it should be a large selection.
No.
But to have 4, 5, 6 units to choose from, as well as like a couple of characters, would be really cool.
Yeah. I feel like given that what they've been able to do that with the Scutari to some degree, although they started to kind of go down that route with the Scutari specific to Heresy, the Custodians are getting an update. It feels like you update the base unit and have a handful of others, and then you've suddenly got a thing. I would have thought, so utter speculation, I would have thought they're popular enough to warrant that. Are they?
I mean,
are they?
The problem is,
they're not as popular as Custodians, are they?
Oh no, wait, definitely not. But they wouldn't need much. So what's interesting is they kept the 2 bolt pistol options, which again I think is a resin upgrade. But the flamer and the execution blade are part of the unit along with the bolter. So you've got a box of them. You've got a couple of characters. You've got the tank. You only need like let's say jet bikes, maybe some kind of scout type unit. I know these are light infantry anyway, but if you could have some scout type unit with some longer range weapons or sniper type weapons.
Jump pack
potentially, yeah, jump pack unit would be good. I think something like a sniper to take out specific targets, because that's what they're there to do at the end of the day, aren't they?
A speeder unit makes perfect sense. Like a speeder that's also a transport kind of thing. But then that kind of does what the Kayron does.
Well, yeah, the Kayron's a transport though.
Yeah, I'm just thinking something like a land speeder Storm. Like a little bird kind of equivalent. A little land speeder that can carry a squad of 5 or something.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, the Kayron's got outflank, light transport. Yeah, something like a little speeder with some esoteric weapons on it that stun. Like the ability to stun so that they can capture. Because the jet bikes in previous edition you could take the option for nets. Something like that would be a really cool idea. I'm not saying I want 4 infantry squads. I want like 2 or 3 maximum. But yeah, as you say, if you had a scout type unit, jet bikes, a speeder or very light tank, something nimble.
That feels like it's the right kind of lightness of touch. I mean, I was thinking of something like a little like a sentinel equivalent, a little walker thing, a piloted walker
Yeah,
that had
that
like
feels
little
a bit.
grabbers. As soon as you start talking that, you're like, oh, it's too heavy, it's too
Oh,
clanking, and it's
like
not got that lightness of touch or
these
elegance
feel.
that you want.
Yeah, they feel they need to be like the stiletto knife.
Yeah.
To go in and do something. But if you had those 6 options, then using them then as allies would be really cool. And they probably should only ever be allies.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't be their own army. So that's
Which I think somewhere does it say that they can? Unlike other army lists, the units in the Anathema Saikara army list do not have an optional allegiance. No, I thought there was something where it said they had to be allies, but no, I think you can do them as an army, can't you? Yes. Okay. I thought it was something that forced you to be allies, but no, it's not them. I'm thinking of something else. Anyway,
armies with the loyalist legions may include units from the Divisio Assassinorum as only allies. Let me have a little look. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't looked. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to make an army of them because
I think it's the Assassinorum.
awful.
It's the Assassinorum that say you can only be allies.
I don't know how much has changed with these, to be honest. I didn't have much of a chance to look through.
No, it wasn't the first one on my list, but they're all there, and it's cool that they're in a book now, and they're not at risk of being legended.
Prime advantage.
Wasn't one of the I seem to remember seeing that one of the assassins, I want to say it's the Infocyte.
Yeah. Or did it have its rules
largely changed? Well, because one of them was controversial, and I can't remember
if it was it was throwing out reactions.
Yeah, and one of them was like banned from events and things. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if that one's changed.
Let's try and find it. It's going to be the last one, isn't it? What's interesting with the background is, but again, we've talked about them. Like everyone knows there's a Divisio Assassinorum. Like it's there, and as much as it's used to go and assassinate targets on different worlds and things like that, it's used to encourage people to stay loyal to the Emperor. Like that's half its job, which is pretty cool. And although, again, everyone knew there was an assassin, an Assassinorium, that the nature of the stories that got leaked about the Assassinorium were very curated, which is really cool. Then 2 other things. There's no list of the Assassinorium clades given, and it says they don't know the number of them.
Right.
So there could be more.
Cool.
And there's links, there's kind of suggestions that you can link each of the assassin clades back to a Terran culture. So these may have come from, the war on terror. Like there may be like the Emperor's gone, yep, cool, I like what you're doing. I will take over you. You will work for me, but let's have a little bit of keeping that going on. But the Infocyte.
I've just compared it, and it doesn't appear to have changed from the PDF. The PDF appears to have had some updates. But I don't
once
see
per
anything
battle.
Here. Yeah, they became changed once. But
so
that was changed. You can't. But they didn't. I wouldn't have thought it would have been that bad. You can't affect aerial. Well, it previously could have affected aerial reserves, and allows the reactive player to attempt to suppress or pin a unit that arrives from reserves. That presumably was the one that was a problem.
Yeah.
Either way, once per battle, and it continues to be once per battle.
Yeah. So not much change there, and I still think their reaction is to run away. Move. So cool. Just a clarification on that, which is good. It's good to have it in a book. I say, although there's not much change, I'm sure there are going to be people who are like, well, I've got a PDF. Like, why do I have to buy a book to do it? But it's good to have it in a book. It makes it more official. It helps people, encourages people to play it. There are, as you say, within the army, there are some changes, but the background is really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. And as I say, and as we said there might be hints on what they do with the units coming forward. Plastic jet bikes, please.
Yes, because they were eye-wateringly expensive to purchase previously. And I think the quality, particularly the
people
jetbike,
use
anything with a lance.
ones.
Yeah, anything with a lance, I think, is always going to be something that you're going to ideally want to have in plastic.
Yeah, for sure, particularly with the resin the way it is. So again, like Liber Custodes, as you said, we got a PDF. The excitement level is like tempered because of that, because it's bringing stuff in. But I think it's done really well. So impressed with the background on this. For, as you said, for a total of 16 pages over the 3 different forces.
Yeah,
maybe a bit more.
I think they've nailed that. I really do.
They've put so much into that.
Yeah.
And you can sort of, like, you look back at, we did the Mailed Fist, and the Mailed Fist was good. But I think with the Custodes stuff, they really managed to eke out every kind of bit of juice that they could from the space they had, which I didn't really expect from a Liber book. So, fair play to the crew over there. I only know Ben and Neil now as names. Don't know who else is writing for them. But whoever took the lead on this done a fantastic job.
Yeah, agree. I think I think as a book that's very cool, and I think if you're collecting the army, it's nice to have it as a
big time
as a pucker book, isn't it?
Well, I think so. Yeah, and
kind of get it. I kind of get it if people don't, but I would.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think there's the one thing you could say about the Libers is they don't, as much as a codex or whatever, you don't pick it up to think, oh, let's get inspired about something. Whereas I think this one did a pretty good job, and obviously it's only dealing with, like, the majority of it is dealing with the Custodes. But within the confines of a Liber, it was a star.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Awesome.
I'm impressed.
I will be ordering both of these. Or this will release when the order goes up. And
and I think from what I'm hearing, a lot of people are very excited by the model release, and this is a release in general. I think that is quite a big deal.
Apart from that segment of the internet, which can't like them because the nature of it ruining everything, like reasonable people, I've heard some legitimate, I'm not a fan of aspects of it, and we'll talk about the models. I think we'd have talked about them in the intro. There's a couple of aspects where I think okay, but generally fantastic.
Yeah, agreed.
Really fantastic. Looking forward to plastic jump pack units and plastic jet bikes and more plastic tanks and all that. So awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Howard.
Thank you, Greg.
I will speak soon. And thank you for making it to the end of another episode of The Imperial Truth. If this is your first time listening and you've listened to the whole show, congratulations. You've got through a lot of waffle. If you've just picked out bits and have stayed listening on, then hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully there's something in there for you. Please feel free to come back and listen. We do occasionally get sent stuff from GW for pre-release, so we'd like to get those out as soon as we can on release date. We like to chat a little bit of heresy. There are a huge number of episodes to go back and listen to of varying quality, I will admit. Next episode, we have an interview with John French, which I think is quite good. I lost the first one. Hopefully, second time was even better than the first one. We talked off air as well about some plans, so I will be trying to come up with something which may feature an author who hasn't appeared on socials or podcasts in a little while. So just trying to work on something for that. So keep your fingers crossed for me that I can get that done. And I want to get more authors on to talk about their experiences of the heresy, looking back. Obviously, a project that is now over a year old from when I wanted to start it, because getting hold of authors is less easy than it used to be, from getting their permissions from Black Library, that kind of, from GW, that kind of thing. So I want to try and do it. There's also people around, not just authors as well, that I want to try and get hold of. Getting hold of them, having them message back, again, it's not always easy. So I will endeavour to do my best. Even now, just getting hold of some of these guys it's just not quite as straightforward as it used to be. But I do have a relationship with a lot of the authors that we're getting on, and even, as I say, some of the people around other aspects of the background as well. So that does help in a world where there are so many more podcasts and so many fewer opportunities to meet and talk to authors and artists and whoever, that having that relationship built up, bridges a number of steps for me, which is really useful at this point. So yeah, who knows? If you like the show, then there's a number of things you can do if you wish to help us. Keep listening. You're always welcome to come and listen to the show. Mention it to your friends. And then we do have, you can review us on iTunes, on Spotify, on your listening apparatus of choice will have some kind of review thing, so that can help. You can follow us on the Twitters and the Instagrams. All the links are in the show notes. But Twitter, @ChildofFang is my personal one, @Imperial_Truth. On Instagram, @ChildofFang. I need to put up, actually, pictures of Howard's models and my models. Howard, we can talk about it now, but he had his models on show on Warhammer Community, because I said I couldn't quite get mine done in time. And Facebook, we have a page there as well. Just go and search for the Imperial Truth. Say all in the show notes. If you like us a lot and you want to support us and you're this side of the pond, you can use our link for Element Games. So click on the link before purchasing, and we'll get a little kickback on that. And we have our crystal codes also listed in there if you wish to do that. Massive thank you to anyone who does any of this. We know you don't have to. We do actually really appreciate it. And I say it does help just pay for the hosting and things like that, because the world we're living in, it's everything costs. But yeah, it is what it is. And then if you really love the show and you're a little bit mad, we do have Patreon as well. Oh, we have a Warhammer merchandise link as well, so I think that's in the show notes. If not, I'll try and make sure it is. There's also a link tree I've got as well. So if you want any of the official GW merchandise, a Joy Toy, a T-shirt, a mug, whatever it is, then you can use that link as well. We get a little kickback on that, which is super cool, and there's some super tempting things on there as well. So, as I say, thank you for anyone who's ever done any of those things. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for listening. If you're just a listener, there's no such thing as just. Then we appreciate your time, frankly, because time is very much a commodity that is worth a lot. Moving on. If you have any feedback for us about the show, any questions, any things you think we missed or mucked up, or there's obviously things we mucked up, but if there's things you think we got horrendously wrong, or missed something, then feel free to let us know. If you've got ideas or topics, things you want to see down the line, then feel free to email greg@theimperialtruth.com or use any of those socials to contact. Might take me a little bit longer to reply on some others. I don't like the way Instagram does. Like, if it's a new message, you don't always get it, that kind of thing. So I will try my best. But yeah, your feedback is welcome, and your ideas are welcome as well, because we don't want to be completely irrelevant. It's going to happen at some point, but yeah, we don't know. If you're going to be at Salute, I think Howard and I are going to be there, so feel free to say hi. It can be a bit busy. It's as much a meeting up with friends thing for me as it is seeing what's there. I will try and endeavour to spend 0 money, but you never know. And I'm also looking at UK Games Expo. It's just been announced that Kat and Caleb are coming over from CK Studios with Army Painter. They're part of the Army Painter crew, and it's been a while since I've seen Kat and Caleb. Well, a year, because it'll be Adepticon was the last time I saw them. I'm going to try and get up. I think it has to be on the Saturday because I've got plans on the Sunday. Minor plans, but I don't want to cancel them. So UK Games Expo, I think, will be one for me as well. And then I'll have to see what else. I'm going to try and get to a Heresy event this year, actually. There's a few options. We shall see. Anyway, I'm rambling on by myself, which is even probably less interesting than when Howard and I ramble on. As I say, feel free to get in touch. Feel free to tell your friends or whoever. If you don't want to do any of that, that's fine as well. We truly appreciate you as a listener. I think I am going to leave it there. Until next time. I will interrupt. The next episode's coming quick. Well, it won't be out when it should be, but it will be quick on the heels. We'll look at Adepticon and the previews there, and we've already got John recorded. We'll record something else as well. And then I am aware I owe you guys an episode, so we were going to have to fit that in as well. Had I been a bit more organised, this would have been a bonus episode, and we would have had a regular episode out. But hey, what you going to do? It is what it is. But hopefully we'll have more exciting Heresy things to come extremely soon. So now, on that point, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.